mission is to maximize student learning and ensure every student is growing academically, social, emotionally, and behaviorally every day in all environments. You'll have to bear with me. This is my first real chair. And this is a big meeting. There's a lot of moving parts. So if I make a mistake or I fumble a little bit, I apologize. We are going to go to patron input. We have accepted it up until the meeting started tonight via emails. I'm going to have Chrissy take over and actually read the patron input, and then we will continue from there.
We had quite a few patron input, so I'll just go one by one. So from Chris Bilski, he writes, my first day of employment at Lakeland High School, it had rained hard the night before. The roof leaked so badly, the hallway was flooded, and all the ceiling tiles were on the floor. Whenever it rained, I would watch the water running down the inside gym wall in the hallway. I had 13 buckets in the ceiling to catch rainwater. This was normal. We never repaired anything, just covered it up. I remember one time, part of the ceiling in an auxiliary gym collapsing during PE because of the rainstorm. We put phones up and a trash can to catch the rainwater. Class resumed and it took 2 weeks to get it repaired. These are just some examples of the neglect of the facilities I've witnessed. As non-certified as we were called, I remember the absence of support. I went through a 5-year-long pay freeze. I later found out years down the road, millions went missing and books were a mess. You couldn't go to the DO, it was just not allowed. You had an issue with anyone, your option was to quit, period. Our custodial supplies were horrible. We had single-ply toilet paper. There was no training for any custodians. Everyone did whatever. There were no standards for cleaning and no oversight. No one had job descriptions, no one had benefits. At Lakeland High School, I had 4 custodians that all worked about 4 hours each. The school was not clean ever. Becky came in and right away things started changing. She made us feel valued. Right away, she started to get all the bus drivers who were part-time to full-time for benefits. We had drivers as noon duties, afternoon custodians, whatever it took. She started upping parapro hours to benefits. She custodians to benefits. We had quality people working here finally. She formed the CDI committee. We had a voice and she listened. We got a pay matrix that was fair. She knows all our names. I worked in building 40 hours a week and there were people who didn't know my name after a year. The entire district was happy. Everyone was taken care of. She's an advocate for us all. Certified or classified, it doesn't matter. She's got your back. Please wade through this mess again and pass this on to your school board. She has fans and is amazing to us. We don't want her to go ever. In my near 12 years here, I can tell you without a doubt, she is the best thing that's ever happened to this district. A couple things I almost forgot. During this COVID-19 crisis, no one lost their job. Other districts laid people off, but not here. Everyone got paid. Our custodians came in and did all the summer work while everyone was out of the buildings. We did this to help the district. No one made us or threatened us. And Chris Jarstead writes, dear school board members, I would like to commend Dr. Becky Meyer for her dedication and hard work during the school closure. In just the last week, 3 great things happened in the Lakeland School District that would never have been possible without her leadership. First, optional school visitation was a huge success. Many valuable resources such as Chromebooks and textbooks were returned to schools. More importantly, teachers, students, and parents were able to have some positive closure to a greatly disrupted school year. Neighboring districts did not plan for this optional visitation, and I believe they missed out on a fantastic opportunity. Next, the graduation ceremony at the Kootenai County Fairgrounds was a huge success. Regulations from the state and local health district were followed, and students were able to have the experience of walking across the stage to receive their diplomas. Understandably, everyone would have preferred a traditional ceremony, but this event was most certainly a best-case scenario, considering the circumstances. Finally, the district administration and the Lakeland Education Association were able to reach a contract agreement for next year. By following the IBB process, both sides were able to present the priorities and concerns in a teamwork manner. This bargaining process that was introduced and led by Dr. Meyer was essential to finding common ground in dire economic times. Again, thank you to Dr. Meyer for countless hours of work and desire to work collaboratively to reach the best outcomes for everyone in the school district. I'm going to need a drink after this of water. It's a lot of reading, guys. Okay, so from Christine Anderson, to the board, long enough on the matter of where we've come in the district. I'm not sure I can join you at the board meeting, so I'm putting my thoughts in. I've been in the district since 1999, first as a parent and then as an employee, so I do come to you with a little background of the state of the district. I feel that often in our society, we make judgment calls off the cuff without doing the much needed research of our past to come to a true and fair conclusion. My first years of the district were extremely tight with funding. The needs of the structures were extremely deferred. It was a continuous situation of putting fires out, and that was the sole focus. I have witnessed the amount of time and energy that has gone in the evaluations of the structures of this district to bring our district back to the best it can be. I have witnessed the countless hours given to evaluate the needs of staff to provide them with the tools needed to give our students the best education. Countless times I have witnessed, we are here to serve the patrons. All our efforts need to be made for our students. They are why we are here. I was very skeptical at first, but it has been proven to me that Dr. Meyer expects nothing but the best so we can produce the best in every aspect of the district. I've been in several CDI meetings where the total focus has been the needs of the district and the classifieds. The administration has put more effort into creating a staff that feels valued. In my 15 years of working for the district and being affiliated with Lakeland for over 20 years, these past 3 years have been some of the proudest moments. The administration is focused on professionalism in every aspect of the district. Dr. Myers created teams made up of businesses, parents, and law enforcement to achieve a safe and comfortable environment for all affiliated. Please join me in appreciating all efforts and to continue with the vision of Dr. Meyer and her administration has spent countless hours to create. Thank you, Becky, for creating a team and not a district of individuals. It takes a dedicated group of people with proper leadership to make a successful school district. I'm looking forward to all the work to bring your vision to fruition. And then from Henrietta Rarian, I want to say that this year has been crazy, but all the things that have been done to the district have been awesome. Looking forward to coming back next year because things have been going so smoothly. From Jessica Denner, Dear Board of Trustees, following is something I would like to bring to your attention to pass on if needed. Also, I have put Ruthie Clark's notes in as well. I've only worked for the district a little over a year now, but have children in the district for many years. I have seen and heard some things that are not true about the administration and the district as a whole. I love that we have meetings and open communication with leaders in our district, only opportunities, concerns, but achievements as well. I know our employees at the bus garage bring unique learning opportunities, but we respect Becky Meyer and how much she appreciates us. She rides on every bus every single year to see how the route looks and to sit with the children. I've never heard of any other superintendent doing that before. I know how much drivers, office staff, and the children love that she does this. Sincerely, Jessica Denner, Transportation Assistant Director. Kim Sawyer says, Dear Board of Trustees, I think Dr. Meyer has done more for transportation than past superintendents. I see how this area is growing. Been here my whole life. It's looking like we need more schools, but my taxes are outrageous. I thought these new homes being built would cover the cost, but according to my taxes and several other persons' taxes, they are not. Not sure what she can do, and a lot of bus drivers struggle to keep enough hours for insurance. Other schools get insurance at 4 hours per day. It's something my husband and I stress about. Losing just one student on your route can put you in a position to lose your insurance. I've been driving 22 years, and I don't think I should have to worry about losing my insurance. From Anna Schnepp, Dear Trustees, I'm compelled to write this letter to the Board of Trustees. This June completes my 31st year as an Idaho teacher. I've worked in Lakeland for 29 years under 5 superintendents. I can unequivocally state that Dr. Meyer is the best of them. Her ability to bring all stakeholders, families, students, teachers, admin, community members, and the board together to address school district needs to makes her rise to the top of all the superintendents I've worked under. Together, we have made awesome things happen in Dr. Meyer's 4 years of service to Lakeland. We have the healthiest fund balance we've had in years, but never seen a superintendent who knows exactly. I've never seen a superintendent who knows exactly how every penny is spent and encourages all administrators to do the same. We have the safest schools with the addition of cameras, beacons, intercoms, armed guards, and SROs. Our schools are well maintained considering the age of the buildings and the ad hoc manner in which many were built. Dr. Meyer's management of our buildings roof repairs was exemplary. Academic programs for our students, from all-day kindergarten to dual credit classes for our high school students, improves every year. We continue to grapple with how to best meet the increasingly complicated needs of highly traumatized students. Our partnership with Heritage Health to provide counseling for these students and their families has helped to address these needs. We are doing these amazing things for the children of the Lakeland School District together because Dr. Meyer engages us, listens carefully, accepts feedback, and meticulously creates plans of action that courageously brings all the things listed above and many more to fruition. I am proud to serve the John Brown Elementary community under her guidance because I know that together, JBE staff, students, parents, and our administration will provide the best education for our students. I invite all board members to spend a day shadowing me at JBE to see in person all the good things happening in our amazing district. Sincerely, Anna Vasquez, principal of John Brown. This one's from Paul Uzzi, principal of Mountain View High School. My name is Paul Uzzi, and I'm the principal of Mountain View Alternative High School. I have had the honor to work with at-risk youth for the last 15 years as a teacher and now principal in the Lakeland Joint School District. Over the last 4 years, under the leadership of Dr. Meyer, we have witnessed a 26% increase in the Mountain View graduation rate. In 2015, we graduated 59.1% of our senior class compared to 75% in 2019. Dr. Meyer has worked with me to adjust our program to better serve the needs of our students. As a result of our collaboration, Mountain View is the highest rated alternative school in the state of Idaho. Experience working with Dr. Meyer has been a growing experience. She has guided me to grow professionally while keeping me focused on what is best for students. As a result of her leadership, I have become more reflective professionally and personally. Dr. Meyer is a leader of leaders. She always provides time for leadership development during administrative meetings, which I believe is necessary for our leadership team to be unified and grow as a team. From my experience, Dr. Meyer has always been professional, upholds ethical and moral values. It has been a pleasure to work with her over the years. Lisa Sexton writes, Hi, Chrissy, I would like to submit the following public comment to the board. I am a patron of this district. Both of my daughters are graduates of Lakeland High School, and I was a member of the Long Range Facility Planning Committee. I would like to address a statement that was made during public comment at the last school board meeting regarding the failed bond. Following the bond election, we held community input forums to solicit input regarding next steps. In every community meeting, Dr. Meyer took full responsibility for the failed bond. As she led the district forward, she surveyed patrons, synthesized their input, and presented their feedback to the board over several board meetings. The plans B, C, D, E, etc. represented the feedback from our patrons, and the plans to move forward were grounded in that feedback. Additionally, she recognized that the majority of the patrons who provided feedback were parents. As part of the plan she presented to the board, she indicated that the district level administrators would hold small cottage meetings to share information, answer questions, and gather feedback from patrons outside of our school families. It is important to her that we hear from everyone whose taxes help support our schools and programs. I appreciate the opportunity to provide this statement. Sincerely, Lisa Sexton. Kathy Thomas writes, Dear Lakeland Joint School District Trustees, I'm writing to you as a principal and educator who has served for 30 years in various roles in 2 different states and 3 districts, with the last 15 of those being in Lakeland as the principal of Athol Elementary. Dr. Meyer's unwavering dedication and commitment to involve all stakeholders, put plans into action, and keep kids at the center of decisions is unsurpassed. Under Dr. Meyer's leadership in Lakeland systems have been established to involve all stakeholders. Examples of this include, but are not limited to, interest-based bargaining, a collaborative win-win approach to support teachers and achieve a fiscally responsible outcome for management of district funds, Lakeland's cabinet, a problem-solving team that gives all parties a voice to create solutions, long-range facility planning committee, community-led group that involved building facilities, facility safety evaluation reports, architect research presentations, financial projections, and growth data, levy presentations, transparency with plans for fiscally responsible use of taxpayer monies, follow-up reports after the levy to provide evidence of action plans. Under her leadership, plans have been put into action to support kids. Examples of this include, but are not limited to, full-day kindergarten. At Apple, it's typical for students to enter not having any prior exposure to literacy, limited vocabulary, and a lack of schema. The full-day program allows us to close the gap and even the playing field as students move to first grade. Also, social and emotional support systems. Now more than ever, students come to us with a range of trauma which ultimately affects their learning. Heritage Health has been instrumental in providing services to this at-risk population that they would not otherwise have. I'm grateful for Dr. Meyer's collaborative leadership and vision to ensure Lakeland can provide for the changing needs of our students, community, and staff. Dr. Meyer is a courageous leader who creates and develops plans with all stakeholders' input and makes it happen. I feel lucky to work together with her to continue to build the best for the district. Sincerely, Kathy Thomas, Principal of Apple Elementary. This is from Jackie Dodger-Ram. Dear Lakeland School Board, I would personally like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Meyer for her leadership during the past few weeks. As educators, this has been a stressful and unusual time. Dr. Meyer did an excellent job of communicating with parents and staff on a weekly basis. When I heard that we would be allowing students the opportunity to return to the building last week, I was unsettled by it. I'm glad to say it went off without a hitch. It was nice to see several of my students in a small window of normality. Not only did last week go extremely well, but graduation was an outstanding process. Thank you, Dr. Meyer, for the support and vision in making both of these events take place. This one's from Shane St. Mark. Dear Board of Trustees, I would like to express my support for the district administration to the school board. I hope they're allowed to continue in the direction they're going. Our department has greatly benefited from admin support. We have someone who's in the same thinking of fixing things correctly rather than putting a Band-Aid on it. Being proactive instead of reactive with equipment and building infrastructure. I feel they've made everyone accountable, not just classified, but certified personnel. When subcontractors are called in and need to be called back for warranty issues, they're now expected to make things right. It wasn't like that when I first started. We were required to go and make it right ourselves. Personnel of the district administration has changed. All that we've accomplished within the last few years will suffer. This one's from Susie Moore. Dear School Board, I have worked for Lakeland Joint School District for 32 years. It's only been in the last few years that many of us in the classified position have felt that we truly matter in the district. I love the LJSD family feel that has transpired in recent years. Not a dysfunctional family, but a family that has a common goal and team spirit. Please let's continue this forward momentum. Sincerely, Susie Moore, Transportation Director. This one's from Susie Adams. Dear School Board members, as a Lakeland Joint School District employee, I want to share some thoughts and observations I have made through the 2019-2020 school year, which was a year unlike any other before. Lakeland staff worked together for the good of our children. Parapros and teachers kept our students learning via the internet. The tech team ensured families had Chromebooks and internet access for learning. Custodial and maintenance staff have diligently sanitized our schools, improved the grounds, and are preparing schools for the next year. Transportation has worked on bus care, transporting students during visitation, and providing internet hotspots for families. The food service team continues to provide 2 meals per day, 7 days a week, at not just one location, but 4. My base coordinators and aides worked and are still working to provide safe and fun childcare for families. All Lakeland School District teams worked side by side in their own department as well as in other departments and did it with a smile. To me, this demonstrates a couple of things. Lakeland School District has amazing leadership, and our family and our district is family. We're not just another school district. To everyone I mentioned in this email and to everyone I failed to mention, thank you for caring. Also to you, the Lakeland School District Board, thank you for the countless hours volunteer time you have given. I'm proud to be a part of the Lakeland School District family. Sincerely, Susie Adams, Base Director. Okay, this one's from Terry Rubin. To whom it may concern. I know that there has been a tremendous amount of negativism and criticism aimed at our superintendent. Much of it has been thrown all over social media. I want to share some of my positive thoughts and light on the subject. You would be hard-pressed to find a more caring individual to represent Lakeland Joint School District. Dr. Meyer puts this district first and foremost above everything else. Every decision she makes is for the good of the district, staff, and her students. She has no hidden agenda nor anything done for personal gain. I know the community is harsh, but I challenge everyone that wants to throw the first stone to walk in her shoes for a while. With all leadership comes hard decisions. We all are familiar with the saying, damned if you do, damned if you don't. When the COVID-19 dilemma hit, she was forced to make difficult decisions. Keep LJSD open or close down. Possibly keeping it open, and she was getting threats. What would each of you do? Say what? Really? Make decisions about reopening, make decisions about graduation, etc., all while a pack of wolves are nipping at your ankles. What would you do? Right or wrong, everyone wants their way. Last year, Garwood Elementary, where I work, found themselves without an admin. Dr. Meyer moved her office to GE in mid-April to be our interim administrator. She led us with the same integrity, honesty, caring, and kindness that she leads the whole district with. She went beyond the call to see that the GE community, parents, staff, and students were not left hanging. That's commitment. She gave all of the staff her cell number and calendar so we could reach her 24/7. I, as a staff member, will never forget how important she made us feel, and she would not leave us without a leader. Nor will I forget her compassion, kindness, selfless, and caring way she led. I was honored to have her at the helm navigating our troubled waters. She not only led GE, but the rest of the district too. I have been a GE for 20 years. Attendants have come and gone, but not one of them ever knew my name or acknowledged me except one, Dr. Meyer. She always comes by to say hi and see how we're doing. She connects with her people and tries to maintain good relations with the community. A wise man that faced a tremendous amount of negativity also once said, you can please some of the people all of the time. You can please all of the people some of the time, but you can't please all of the people all of the time. Abraham Lincoln. Sincerely, Terry Rubin. Vicki Buchert writes, I'd like to thank Dr. Meyer and the leadership team for all of the hard decisions you had to make to keep our schools running and people employed. Our staff and patrons really need to know how hard admin worked to figure this all out. Good job. Whoops. Oh. And last one from Summer Bilski. Dear Board of Trustees, my name is Summer Bilski. I've been a parapro for Lakeland District since 2009 and remember what it was like before Becky. We had no benefits, no personal holidays, no one looking out for us, classified staff. We had very, very low pay and just had to grin and bear these conditions if we wanted to work in the district. After Becky came to our district, we classified staff were given benefits, better wages, and a say in things we never had before. I appreciate all that she has done and is still doing for the classified staff in the district. She looks out for us, and even if some do not realize this, I, for one, very much appreciate her. I believe this district would revert back to the sad state it was if Becky weren't here to keep it going strong. This lady and her vision has made the district better in every way. Thank you for your time, Summer Bilski.
Thank you. All right, so according to the agenda, we will go right into the budget hearing then. So, Mr. Wallace, you have a presentation for us? All right, so we're entering the budget hearing.
Vice Chair Iron, board members, trustees, Dr. Meyer. So this is the annual budget hearing as required by Idaho Code. So, traditionally, I'll go through a lot of these slides and provide information. If at some points I'll stop and answer questions, but if you have questions, please let me know. And I can get you later, or at the very end, of course, we can have a conversation. So this actually, just so you know, the first slide is actually the cover page of the actual document that does end up going down to Boise. So you actually see the cover page that every district submits for their budget, the standard forms that are provided by the State Department of Education. I would like to start the budget hearing presentation with this screen. Not because I like the form. It's actually, I think, I don't like this summary statement, but this is what we actually publish in the paper for our budget hearing required by law. And so this is the form that the state has adopted to use. And it's okay, what it shows just the actuals from It goes back 3 years. It shows the actuals from, the first 2 years if you go back, and then the previous year just shows budget and proposed budget because the actuals from 2019-20 we're not done with the year yet, so we don't know what those will be. And the left side of the box is just the general fund. So that's, for us, it's Fund 100. At the state level, sometimes they also call it the M&O fund, maintenance and operations, but generally, most places now it's just a general fund, which is where the bulk of our activity goes for operations in the school district. And then the right-hand side is all our other funds, which, I'll go over those major other funds throughout the presentation, but includes our plant facility fund, our debt service fund. If, let's say, we would have passed the bond, it would have been on that right-hand side, because we would have had a bond fund. And so those all other funds often can really dramatically change from year to year. So like if we added a bond, let's say a $30 million bond, then suddenly, the totals of that, of those other funds, the $11 million, it might be $41 million, because now you have this bond money. So I think this form sometimes isn't good. I think it confuses people who actually see it sometimes, because they're just a bunch of numbers. And if you don't really have the explanation behind the numbers, sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But regardless, this is the form required by law, and it's what we use. So I just like to sort of show that, and a lot of the next to the hearing is going to sort of get into the details of what this summary is. So one thing that I like to stress as we look at a budget, at the very level for the governmental budget is your plan for the year. And it's really and estimates of the resources you're going to have to provide the educational program. And in Idaho, our largest dollars come through, we have a large levy, but it comes from the state based on, really our attendance. And so it's really important as we look at the data and how we arrive at some of these estimates on how much revenues are going to come from the state. There's really two factors that drive police funding as it is now in the state of Idaho. One is average daily attendance. So it's how many kids you have. But it's not just how many kids you have, it's how often they show up. Because in Idaho, we get paid by attendance, not by enrollment. So estimating that is important. The other thing was why I put staff is that for our teachers and administrators, they get paid on a state salary schedule. And for the teachers, it's called the career ladder. And we don't pay on the career ladder, but it's really a revenue formula. And so Idaho's always had that the more experienced teachers you have, they'll give you a little more dollars than if you have less experienced teachers. And so, traditionally in the last few years, we have more experienced teachers. But estimating what we sort of call your staff mix, where staff will land on the career ladder is important because it directly impacts how much money you receive. So those are two factors that we always really look at when we're building our enrollment and our funding projections. And so if we go right into enrollment, here's the history, and I'm going back to 0809, of the district, and you can see, it's always been sort of this funny graph of the last few years I've done it, that we had to dip in the recession, you can see that, and then, but really since 2015-16, except for 1 year, we're sort of flat, and the last few years, we definitely had an upward trend in the district, and I think as you look at the growth in Rathdrum and some subdivisions going in, and even up, some of that I think is going to hit out on Spirit Lake and stuff like that, but our district is definitely growing right now. That green is 4,646. So when I looked at budget and I rolled up numbers, I sort of do a cohort model where I look at our enrollment and I look at our averages of the cohort survival rate through grades at 2 years, 3 years, and 5 years. And I also just purely roll up numbers, and sometimes you sort of look at, and where do I think we're going to land? And so I think, there's a lot of factors out there for this year. It's sort of a unique year with the COVID, and there's a charter school opening, so um, it's always a guess. You always hope you have a crystal ball, but I do think we'll probably have a few more kids than last year, just given some of the growth we're going to have. And the reason enrollment is important, well, we do too, but I also look at attendance, right? Because we get paid on attendance. So why do I look at enrollment and attendance? Why don't I just look at attendance? Because we staff at enrollment and we get paid on attendance. So we have to staff just because out of every class, let's say 5% of the kids are gone that day, that doesn't mean I don't staff to the 100% because of class sizes if they are all there all day. So, so the enrollment number is important for determining staffing levels. The attendance one is important to determine, at least with the current rate, the dollars we're going to get. And you can see the graph is similar, but you can see that this year our average daily attendance was 4,339 compared to 186 of enrollment that previous day. So on average day, we don't have every kid show up. And I'm actually, but if you look at this, 4646, should my line go up? I actually predicted that our attendance rates next year are not going to be as good. And I think part of that, I built that a little bit within maybe with the charter school, but really, I think the COVID, I think kids are going to be not showing up to school as much. We're going to ask parents, if they have a sniffle, if they have a fever, do not show up. Well, that's going to impact us dollar-wise. Now, if there's a big outbreak and we have another, closure for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or hopefully that won't happen. But those things, there's waivers we can do for funding, and there's some emergency clauses that we can ask the state to forgive our attendance for those days. But on a general rule, if we just have parents being more cautious with their kids and like that, I just think it's prudent to say, I don't think our kids are our attendance rates will be quite as high as in previous years. And I do like, this is sort of an ugly slide, so I apologize. But what I'm trying to show there is that even though ADA enrollment, I say it's difficult to predict because sometimes you can see is our 88% how it went up and down from the previous year. And the blue is enrollment. So you can see sometimes, like in 2910, enrollment went up a bunch, but attendance didn't. So sometimes, but our attendance rates were better. On the same side of the line. But it's been a very strange year, and I think some of the challenges that we've seen next year, at least with having to work with mental health and those things, I just can't see it not impacting. So those are some of the assumptions I did building this budget. So how does that really work? So when you look at the way you have so many kids, then it's how many times they show up, and then all that ADA is eventually converted in what they call a funding unit. And funding units, think of it as a classroom. And we earned last year, and we actually earned 2 different unit levels. One's our salary, that's SBA and salary-based apportionment. So that's the unit that we earn within the first 10 weeks of attendance, and that's what is based on our staffing. And then we also have another unit that's called the best 52 weeks, which pays our discretionary dollars. But I'll just use the salary-based apportionment one, because actually this year I don't even have our best 52 weeks yet. So you can see that throughout the years that the units sort of follow that whole attendance and enrollment pattern, which would make sense. And that, ironically, we still, the highest units we ever earned were actually way back in 2010. So we're almost to where we were as far as units. And units are, when they do that, kids are not equal. So we get paid more for a high school kid, a secondary kid, and elementary. The ratios are different. The alternative students is where you only have to have 12 on average to get a unit. So if you have 12 kids at Mountain who attend all year, that's a unit. I have to have 20 kids at elementary attend all year to get a unit. And secondary, I need 18. And special education, there's some enhanced funding there for a little while. Regardless, my units I'm projecting, because it really is based on ADA, I think that we're going to earn less units next year, which results in really less funding. But any questions sort of on that information? All right. So here's how it affects, revenues. And so this is, again, our revenue history. This is state revenue, and it's all the funds. So some of this isn't based on apportionment, but I figured I'd just take all state dollars. And you can see here where we were way back in 2008-09. This is really the start of the recession. And then here's where our state revenues have been increasing. There's two reasons our state revenues have been increasing. One, out of the recession, we started having more students, so we were just getting more revenues because we have more kids. And two, the state was providing their funding for those more dollars, mostly for the career ladder, which is providing more dollars for teacher salaries. So those two factors is why we were growing in dollars. It wasn't all based on state increases. Some of it was we had more kids from the recession. So this is my budget number. And the reason I have the budget number is I don't have my final state number, so I didn't want to put an actual there. So this is what we received in 2018-19. If we follow a budget, which it should be pretty close, might be a little lower than that, that's where it'd be. And so I've actually, because of the less units and some of the holdbacks of the state student, that we're going to receive less dollars from the state than we received this year. I think that's going to be the case for almost every district in the state. And with that, so how do we deal with, a $1.1 million loss? Well, this is where we ended up reducing in the general fund. Is our budget is now built on, we do have, we're planning on less certified staff, and most of those are happening through attrition, through staff with retirements, resignations, who had non-continuing contracts. So, and that's a pretty typical strategy of districts when they start in a time of declining revenues. The first thing is that can you meet some of your goals with attrition, as opposed, and sort of reshuffle staff and shift things to avoid layoffs or risks. For staff reductions, some of that was some paraprofessional hours in the buildings. Also, that we had a technology staff member, tech, who is going to get his degree in law school. So that was attrition to replace that position.
Having some trouble hearing you, so I'm
okay.
moving them.
All right. We have some reductions with district office staff. We've reduced our curriculum budget for next year, our building budgets, and by that it's sort of materials and supplies that are allocations to our schools. We're reducing those allocations. Field trips, as far as the budget that we provided, again, to the schools, we just sort of cut that line item out for this year. We're deferring the uniform rotation for at least a year. Again, those are dollars that were sort of allocated to the high schools and junior highs for uniforms, so we'll just have to use the same uniforms for next year. The ranking school officer, that's a contract that we're going to defer for a year or more, and then right now our after school activity routes, which we run those, that's a savings there. So those are the estimated savings that we had to sort of meet the challenge of the decline revenues. Any questions on that right now? And so now we're going to go through, first I'm going to focus on the general fund, and then I'll take up questions, and then there's just a lot of this.
Right,
Oh, sorry.
just going back to that last slide, just for clarification purposes, because a question had been asked by trustee and an answer was received via email. The building budget reduced 20%, $48,000. That is instructional, that's supplies and that. Can you explain what that building budget is?
Yeah, so we have a formula that we sort of base it on enrollment that provides dollars for each principal to purchase office supplies. You know, they could curricular materials if maybe they want to purchase a few computers by themselves, maybe they need some furniture. It's sort of to give some power at the building level to control what's going on in their building, to support that. And so we reduced those items 20%. So they still have an allocation, but it's less. So things will be tighter, definitely at the building level. But that was.
I just wanted to make sure that wasn't about maintenance and repairs.
Oh, no,
Okay.
no, that's, yeah, and I guess that's just sort of us. We just always call it the building budget. I guess I could call it the individual school budget or something.
Some of us are new.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We know me.
Right. So in the general fund, and this is really sort of a summary of that first page that I showed you. We're beginning the year. I mean, this is an estimated number, but I'm guessing that we're going to begin the year with $5.3 million. That's very close to where we started the year this year. So I think that when we end this year and we get our audit in October, I think we're going to be close to that. I guess you never know. A lot of it depends on property tax collections in August, because that gets credited back to this fiscal year. So it's sort of a challenge to come up with that number accurately, and also with the 1% holdback this year, there's a lot of moving parts. But for lack of, that's my estimate, and we'll see how good my estimate is later. We have local tax revenue, our state revenue estimated in the general fund, $150,000 federal revenue, which is the E-rate program, which is discounts on telecommunications. Those transfer in or actually transfers in from our federal programs for indirect costs. So effectively, that would give us revenues of almost $5 million. And with that, the 5.3 million, we have a total available of the 39,818,000. And so where are we going to, where do our dollars go? Well, in the general fund, and like in all the monthly reports, vast majority goes to salaries and benefits for staff. And so the salary and benefit number, that includes teachers, administrators, bus drivers, paraprofessionals, anybody charged that. So I'm not disaggregating that between different classifications of staff. But again, we're a people business, and anywhere from 85 to 88% is very typical in Idaho school districts to go to staffing. Purchase services is the next there. Down with that is like our utilities. If we have a contract with like an individual to provide, let's say,
Like
Optimism, right? Yeah, who was helping us with our copier contract, or perhaps the web services, and we don't have that in house, so you get a counselor or a therapist or a speech language therapist or OTPT, all those things. Supplies and materials, that's just the things we buy. And Trustee Grissom did have a question about capital outlay. And capital outlay is actually a very formal definition. And are we putting it on our depreciation schedule? And generally, it has to be over $5,000. So like all the Chromebooks that we're purchasing, that's a supply material. It's not capital,
Right.
By
Right.
the definition. But in the general fund, we're not spending any capital outlay of that fund, we do, and the others we do. They do have a line item for insurance. That 161,240 is our liability insurance. And then transfers out is really to our Medicaid fund, and I can explain a little bit of that, but that's really sort of the cost of us to have Medicaid. It's a goofy thing now. Medicaid really, the fund, the way the state is having us do it now, is really a pass-through fund. I don't know if we want to get into details of that, but that's that transfer out. So, but regardless, the budget was built that we'd start roughly with $5.3 million and we'd end at about the same place with a sort of a relatively flat budget. Of course, it never ends where you think, but we think that given our revenues and where the expenditures are, that we're not going to really eat into the fund balance too much, but we're not going to add too much either. Any questions on that? So to look at, I just like to sometimes show that some of the information graphically, so you can just see there are revenues that between the blue and the red, those are state programs. So the state foundation program, that's really apportionment. That's when I was talking about the teachers and the ADA and all that. But there's also, we have some categorical funding in the general fund in the state that are funds that, I don't know, they have like a career college advisor. That was funding that was possibly going to be cut, but they didn't cut. That is X amount of dollars the state gives us on a different line item for apportionment that we have to spend on that program. So that's what I mean by categorical. So that sort of goes into red. We also have, you know, the next obviously big area that supports the district is our levy, local tax revenue. And then we have that small little further in federal, which is pretty tiny.
Right. Flipping back to the budget summary, that $5,327,490. How does that relate to the unappropriated balance?
It should be the same.
Okay, so when we're all said and done in balance, it then goes into the unappropriated?
Yeah, and I don't like that. That's one thing I don't like this this form that the state's adopted.
Okay.
So unappropriated balance is really, in a sense, they mean fund balance.
Okay.
But they don't say that. Because they say, okay, you're going to have $5.3 million and you didn't appropriate to do anything.
Okay.
So, you know, really, it's, and that's when, and Trustees Kristen's question when she asked sort of about that, you know, I wish they would just follow the standards that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board has come out with. And instead of having that term, that they really have, you know, committed fund balance, assigned fund balance, restricted, and unassigned. And unassigned would be different. So, for example, in Washington, when you report this, they have, like, at the end of the day, they'll have, well, do we have a committed fund balance? So some districts will put committed fund balance. Let's say the board is saving $1 million for field trip. I don't know. And we're committing that.
Right.
And the board has done that. Well, that doesn't then, so that's untouchable. So if I had the 5.3, then it'd be 1 million committed, 4.3 unassigned.
Right.
And there's other commitments. So often, if you have a minimum fund balance policy, whatever that minimum is, so if our minimum is 8.3%, that'd be committed. That we're not going below that, and you only have to assign. But I actually think this, just on a philosophical level, is not a good form. But they didn't ask my opinion when they adopted it. So I know.
So just trying to wrap my head around exactly the unappropriated balance.
It's effectively our fund balance at the end of it.
Okay, so at the end of the year, if your magic,
If everything happened, right.
is as it says it is, we should end the end of the year with $5,327,490
Correct.
on the general fund, and then another $3,000,006 whatever on the other funds.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And so if we look then, we get off the revenues, or we go to the revenues, just look as a percentage, that, again, just shows that that state foundation program apportionment still the most important aspect of our funding at 65, 7.5% of those capital programs, but our levy, almost 27% of our revenue. A real big deal as far as, the program we're running in Lakeland right now. And the others are very small. We look at spending, again, sort of the purple there, the salaries and the benefits are definitely the largest piece of the pie, and purchase services, supplies and materials. So, in the big picture of really look at when purchase orders come through and somebody wants to go buy stuff, a lot of times I don't get too stressed about it because in the big picture, we certainly hold people to their budgets, but the decisions that really impact our budget are the staffing decisions. That's really what drives our expenditures. And if you look at this, I sort of like to do this chart just to sort of show, as a percentage, 88 point, everything ends up being perfect here would be base of our budget be dedicated to salaries and benefits. You can see the breakdown of the salaries and benefits, the 66 and the 23.3. So, on average, 22% of our staffing costs are benefit costs. And that includes not just medical, but it's also PERSI, retirement, Social Security, FICA, all of those. And so that is really my comments right there at the end for the general fund. And I'll go into the other funds now. And of course, we have questions at the end. If you have any specific questions on that stuff, we can wait till the end too if you're not sure. So the rest of the presentation, what I've done is I've taken that same format of where we're going to start with the fund and where we're going to end with the fund and what we spend it on and where we get our dollars for. And just to sort of give you an idea, if this was, outside the general fund, which is still, by far where the most activity happens and really drives the primary part of the budget, we do have some of these other funds from federal sources and local sources. So the first one I'd like to talk about is our base program. So the base program is not funded by levy dollars or state dollars. It is all self-funded. And so it's funded by other local, and that other local is parent fees. So it's really those revenues that the parents are paying for the service. And so we should have a beginning fund balance, I'm guessing that starting at $150,000. We actually cut into that quite a bit this year. With COVID, and we had base staff and kept them on. And we didn't charge first responders when we were doing that during the spring. Plus we weren't running the program, but we're paying people. So it was good to have a big fund balance because we ate into that or will. But, again, for this program, the salaries and benefits of the staff who are watching the kids, and they do purchase a few supplies and materials. The purchase services are really them paying for field trips and paying the buses. They go to different places, mostly during summer breaks when they do a lot of the trips to there. They don't do too many field trips, obviously, during the school. But we think they'll, build the budget so that it'll be flat. And if it's sort of a normal year, they should be able to break even or stay in the positive. State Technology Fund. I'm estimating we're going to start fund balance of $320,000, which is good. We've had a little bit of a fund balance there. That state revenue is $342,820. Last year, that was $461. So this is part of the cuts. So all the cuts the state did weren't necessarily all in the general fund. So they did cut the state technology funding. But that's assuming the legislature goes with the governor's recommendation, that'll happen. And that, the vast majority of our purchases for that are supplies and materials, which are really technology devices. We do have some services if we're doing some projects with Well, some software subscriptions or services, they're not stuff. And also there could be some networking projects that we end up having to use some outside expertise to configure the network. But that I am planning that we're likely going to spend some of that fund balance down this year, down and take us down about 150. We have federal Title I and Title I. We have really 3 federal funds that are the biggies. This is the first one. It's Title I to help students of need who, economically challenged, families, and that's really where the resources go. We should start the year, we can carry some over up to 15%. We're not carrying that much over, about $70,000. Our grant this year is that $790,000, and it's all federal revenue. So we have a total available of $861,658, and that and this has always been traditionally that how Lakeland has spent these dollars has been on staffing, on teachers and paraprofessionals. The supplies and materials, we are required to put some dollars into parent involvement, and that pays for some of the Title night supplies and materials and some of the minor things, but most of it was staffing. That transfer out, that is called an indirect, and we're able to give that back to the general fund for a little bit for all the work we do on the administrative level to manage that grant. The next biggie, this is number 2 of the big 3, is federal special education. We do get special education dollars as part of our apportionment, so part of that big blue pie from the state is special ed funding from the state. But to supplement that, we do have Fund 257, which is federal special education. Again, we're going to start with a small fund balance. The amount this year is very close to Title I, $792,000. And again, we do have a few supplies and materials we do that have to be directed directly to special education kids. And most of the supporting in this fund is teachers. Special education teachers is where we put our dollars in this fund. Next one, this isn't one of the big 3, but Medicaid. So we do receive dollars in Medicaid that if some of our staff provide a service that is Medicaid reimbursable, we have a staff member who compiles all this paperwork, and we can do a claim to the state and receive these dollars. And so right now, this Fund 260 is a pass-through. We will have claims of let's say 410,000, but I actually have to get the 320, that 410. I have to have what they call a copay. That's my 90,000. That 90,000 is a transfer to the general fund. But otherwise, then what we end up doing is once we get those dollars, we actually just do accounting and shift expenses over here, so it does benefit the general fund. We do get the dollars. We didn't have to account this way. This changed like a year ago, and so it's sort of just a pass-through account, but it does benefit the general fund because we're reducing expenditures there.
Right. On the supporting documents that you gave for that 90,000, you have it going into special education support services program, but you're saying it's a pass-through.
Well,
I'm not understanding that.
as far as which line are you looking at again?
Expenditures. I'm looking at the line 17, 616, 104, 260 for Medicaid. I'm just trying to understand.
You're going to have it as a transfer.
We've got it under here as support services.
Yeah, and
So I'm just trying to wrap my head around what it is.
yeah, we're essentially, I have to show that as it's strange. I have to show that as an expenditure. So as a general rule for Medicaid, we either have contracted with a provider to that Medicaid service, and then we get reimbursed since we are the agency, or we have a staff member. So that's a guess as far as how much will be reimbursed from staff or how much would be reimbursed from a contract.
Okay,
That's all.
so we're not actually then putting it in.
That's sort of the expenditure side. And that's this 90,000 here, that's purchase services.
Mhm.
So that matches. This 90,000 is on the revenue side. So it's two different things.
Right.
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is that some of our Medicaid costs that were reimbursable, some are from our staff members providing the service. Some might be, we contract with Kootenai Health to provide the service. But since they provided the service, I get revenues back from it, then I'm able to charge that service to this. I have to,
I'm sorry.
so, well, the state wants to know, what are you spending Medicaid on?
Okay,
So if I have my reimbursement claim, some will be salary and benefits, some will be a service. So I'm just
so what
guessing.
you're saying is you're estimating $90,000 for services for the special education support service.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's sort of, it's just an estimate.
Okay,
And in fact, the reason the state had us do this is they wanted this data, that salary benefit, so they could report to the legislature, what are schools paying on Medicaid? Don't even get me started, because they have the information with our claims. They don't, I shouldn't have to do this. They have it down at Boise. So it sort of drives me nuts. And in fact, the reason it's not even that accurate is that we get reimbursed at a different rate than what we pay our people. I'm just like a doctor's office, right? A doctor. So all of this is just, some of it is just accounting. I guess the bottom line is we should get, which is a good thing, it helps us out in the general fund about $300,000.
okay.
Rough, but you're right, it's sort of goofy.
Okay.
And we will tell Anthony, who's the director of special ed at the state, he remembers me, and I'll let him know that my board members agree with me, that it's confusing. Federal Title II, Fund 272. This is a smaller federal program. It is for staff development to support teaching and learning. Our instructional coaches, a couple of our instructional coaches are supported by this fund, so they're not charged to the general fund, so we use these dollars for that purpose. There's the third big three of federal funding for us, and that's child nutrition. And we believe we're starting a fund balance of $180,000. That's actually been going down the last couple of years. Some of that's been because of equipment purchases. Our revenues come from two sources. One, the federal revenue is mostly the National School Lunch Program. The other local, those are sales of parents who don't qualify for free and reduced lunch, but they're paying for lunch, like myself. I'm paying for Evan eats Domino's pizza every day. And where we spend our money in that, since we contract with Chartwells, the $832,000 is really our contract with them to provide their staffing and their management of the program. The $614 of supplies and materials, that's mostly food. $10,000 capital outlay, we might spend a little bit on maybe upgrading the freezer or that. And if with fund balance is possible, that Kevin will request using some of that fund balance to buy another food service truck. We did one, I think 2 years ago, but the other one's original to the program when it first started in '99, and it's on its last leg. So we may have to do that, but we're not sure yet.
And we carry the insurance?
That insurance, they do get, yeah, that's part of their portion of liability. Debt service fund, when you have, bonds outstanding, the debt service fund is where we pay we collect the taxes for those bond payments and where we pay the principal and interest. And so we have a fund balance of $2.3 million. We're anticipating collecting the 1.4 million, and state revenue is the bond equalization program, so we get a little money from the state. And that there is our bond payments for this year, and so we should end up at the same place. Our bond taxes at $1.4 million is about 40% less last year. Our bonds are starting to wind down, and you always want to have some fund balance in here. You don't want the general fund ever to look like it's subsidizing the bond fund. We've promised as a district that the debt service fund is wholly self-sufficient for these bonds, these government obligation bonds. We want to make sure we have a fund balance in there that there's no question that we can support that obligation the district made to the taxpayers. But as we get closer to retiring our bonds, which 2025 is the last year, we'll retire some in 2023, that our collections, because we have that fund balance, will dollar-wise, pure dollar-wise, will start being used. Plant facility fund, again, Fund 420. This was a
Explain what the plant facility fund is.
yes. So the not every district has one. So our district for years we have two levies going on. We have our supplemental levy, which is for the MNO. Supplemental levy can only go for 2 years, and it goes to general fund, can be used pretty much anything. A plant facility fund is that it can only go towards facilities, and it's another levy. And our voters approved, and a plant facility fund can be approved for between 1 year and 10 years, or supplementals only 2. So our plant facility level was approved for 5 years at this amount, this $1,146,520. I believe we're starting year 4, I believe. I actually have that in the 2022. Okay. And in order for a plant facility fund to be approved, depending on how much you're asking for relative to your tax base, there's different voter thresholds. But for this plant facility fund, we had to meet a 55% yes, not a simple majority for the plant facility fund.
Okay.
And that's the lowest threshold for a plant facility fund, is 55%. It's never a simple majority. So these dollars we've been using to, for example, we've been doing the roof repairs over the last 2 years. They were coming from this fund. So we replaced the roof at Timberlake High School, Twin Lakes Elementary, Spirit Lake. So neighborhood projects all came from these dollars. But again, you can see that we don't charge any salaries and benefits to this. We have some supplies and materials, capital outlay. The transfer out that takes me to the next fund, is our bus appreciation fund, which we need to maintain. We get dollars from the state as our buses get older, called bus appreciation. That's that $115,000. The other sources is that $225 from the plant fund. So we are buying. It's okay for the plant fund to also capital items to purchase buses, and so we've been transferring that $225,000 the past few years to help with our bus purchases. So this year, for example, we bought 4 buses. We had enough. Next year, because our fund balance is a little lower with those 4 buses, we sort of drained it. That capital outlay of $315 would be roughly 3 buses. This will be the plan for next year. And then that will leave us a little bit more money in the fund balance, but not a whole lot. And that $315 might be a little high. Generally, our buses have been under $100,000, but always, I don't know, maybe it'll be more expensive. We'll get the fancy buses. But those are really our major other funds, and sort of compile when you said that fund balance is sort of from there. So you can see a big part of that $3 million is really what we have in our debt service fund to service our bonds. There's not, that's the vast majority of it for right now, but that will go down the next few. And with that, that's at least the end of the slides, but I'm here for any questions and comments and discussion. Thank you for suffering through presentation.
No, it's good. I have a question. So the prior year's actual budget on what we're submitting to the state is at 39,355,879. If we look at everything that we've been presented with and what was presented to the state, its budget on the paperwork, that budget number reads 34,987,345, which is a difference of 4.83 million. But our fund balance is nearly 6 million, so
I guess I'm not sure which number you're looking at.
where the, if you look at the actual summary statement for this year, it shows the prior year budget at 39,355,879.
Correct.
Okay, and then if you look at the prior years, and gosh darn it, I think I just clicked on the wrong thing. The prior years, saying the budget that was submitted was 34,931,298. So I'm just trying to figure out where the 4.83 million is, because it's not the nearly 6 million, 5 point whatever it was million of the fund balance. So
I'm seeing. I have a typo on here. I mean, I'm seeing, if you're looking at.
Yep.
It's 39,355 and 39,818. So I don't know. It's very
right,
close.
that's what I'm talking about, is the 2019, 2020, this year that we're in.
Right.
This statement is 39,355,879. On the other statements of prior years, 3, 4, go back to my number. No, that's this year's. Yeah, that's this year. So the same paper, I
guess I don't know where your 34 number is. I don't see it.
yeah, it's not on there.
Oh,
That's
then what are
fine.
you, then what are you looking
I can send it to you and I'm just trying to figure out where it.
But are you saying it's from that sheet from last
From the
year's
last
budget
year,
summary?
right.
She's saying the summary statement from 2019, 2020 school budget all funds, the year
Yeah.
before. She's looking at that sheet from exactly a year ago.
from the,
And she has it, I think she has it up on her computers where she.
I don't
that's
know, I'd
right.
have to look at it
Okay,
and see it tied out. I had Cindy, she's supposed to tie those out, so it should be
okay,
okay, and we haven't really changed budget.
okay.
Now, I do have a question, because you had stated at the beginning that this is what we publish, correct?
Correct.
Okay, in the supporting document page, on the summary statement, there was an increase on the local revenue line. Is there, if you go to the supporting document, it's not here. I can show you.
Okay,
I was a little confused by it, but, because I went off of this, you've got your, that there and that there,
Right.
for 2020. Like that one. But, if you go over here, they're different amounts. So I just didn't know if maybe there was something else, because fully understand you give the information to publish, and then things can fluctuate and change.
is this the,
So,
yeah, there might have been, there was one 30, was it $3,700 or $3,500?
I just know that over on this, because I was comparing these two, which are exactly
Well,
the same.
this is budget, right?
Or no, this one. This one is 35. But it's 25 on that page. Or 2581777. But here we have 3541. So I just thought,
Well, this is local tax revenue. This doesn't, that 960 is other local revenue.
so it's a combination of these two.
Correct.
Oh, thank you for clearing that up, because I could not figure out how we got there.
Yeah, that should tie out.
I'm sure it will.
There's been some buzz in the newspaper about the governor making noise about reducing or giving a break on taxes for the property taxes for the upcoming year. And I'm just kind of wondering if he does choose to do that, what kind of position will that leave us in?
I I don't think he can, unless they changed law, I don't think he could change what our voters are already approved for school levies. Maybe there's some things at the state level that they can do as far as, like for school districts, we don't get the automatic increases that counties and cities can do. In other districts, they can give like an automatic increase. We can only go by what the voters have approved. So I don't think it would impact schools unless for some reason the savings at that state revenues, that then they reduce some of our apportionment by saying, I'm going to give you less money for your ADA because I'm getting less taxes. I mean, that could be an impact. I could see us having mid-year budget cuts, but not from our local property tax.
With respect to the difference between the instructional programs and then the supporting programs,
Mhm.
what is the difference?
All those supporting documents, all those functions are defined by what we call IFUNs. So that's the accounting guide for Idaho. So that's real. We're just following what the state tells us. So function 512, 512,000, that's elementary education. So that's instructional support.
Okay.
So function 515, that's secondary education. So if in our account code structure, if you saw a 512 function on an account code, you know it's going to elementary education. So a teacher at John Brown, for example, their account code is Fund 100, then 512 follows. Their object 110, which is the 100s is salaries, and then John Brown is 101, building. So if I see that code, I know that teacher is being charged to John Brown Elementary Education. To contrast that with the high school, Lakeland High School, they're 515, which is signifying secondary education. Code, again, the same object, 110 when we look at salaries, but then their location number is 301. So if I look at an account code, I know at least where the dollars are going to which building. And then you could tie it to a name eventually. But that account code structure, it's called fund, function, object, location, and then project are sort of the segments of our account codes. And that's what we are required to follow based by
No, but I
the
guess
account code structure.
what I'm trying to understand is under total instruction for expenditures, I show that we are taking a cut of $1,046,064.
Yeah,
Okay.
that wouldn't surprise me, and that's because we reduced 10 certified staff, right?
No, I get that. I do show that within that we are increasing special education program 313,789, but everything else is being reduced. And then when I go down to continue looking at it, total support services is actually on their expenditures increasing $516,219, but the overall total expenditures is going down $440,745. So I guess I'm just a little.
So some of those variances could be simply with coding changes of how staff are. So if you end up having staff members who move from different positions differently. So if I had a teacher, for let's say I had a veteran teacher who was teaching at John Brown, and they are general education teacher, top our step, 60-something thousand, so $80,000. And let's say next year they're going to special education, 521. So that whole 80,000 gets shifted over to just a different account code. Or let's say they're going to a support service where they're not doing classroom instruction, they're going to become a OT or PT. When those dollars shift, it's shifting on by an account code change, but it's really not changing our bottom line. It's just coding for iPhones. Or if I have an expensive teacher retire, so if I have some of my retirements and resignations coming in, and these are teachers that are at the top end of our pay scale, and then I project that we do fill those positions, but I'm saying, well, it's more likely we're going to fill them with a teacher who is first-year teacher. Well, the difference between that, of that cost of that first-year teacher and our veteran teacher is $40,000. Well, if I have 10 of those, there's $400,000. There's no different than just on the coding and who's sitting in that position. So I guess specifically those, when you're building our budget that is this complex, that stuff happens all the time. And so there can be variances between the functions based on sort of your staffing for that year.
Okay, so like the school administration program, is that an educational?
Well, that's the school administration program, that is our principals. That, and that,
Okay.
then that title is, all these titles are all the state nomenclature.
Oh, and I'm
Just so you
not
know.
questioning what they
No,
are, I'm
I'm
questioning
telling you.
what are they? Because like I said, I'm totally.
Yeah,
new to
school
this.
administration, that's a principal, right?
Okay, the instruction related technology program,
Which is,
what is that?
that is, if we have staff related to being our techs,
Okay,
we just code certain expenditures to, that's how we're asked to code. So some of our techs are, if it's a purchase of Chromebooks for instruction, then we charge it to that. If it's a purchase of a Chromebook for an administrator, we charge it to the administrative function.
okay, because I noticed out of the plant funds, we have money going into that program.
Correct.
And I didn't know how that worked, given, I thought.
Because we're buying stuff, because we're buying
So you buy
technology.
stuff out of the plant funds.
Correct.
Okay,
And so we're just sort of coding it to what they're asking us to code it to. So for example,
they being the state board or they?
the State Department of Education, I can forward you the iFarms manual.
No,
You can see
You
it.
have to understand, we've had no training.
Oh, no,
Me.
oh, no, and
So-
no, Trustee Thompson, I definitely understand, and it's, and actually some of it is the challenge of the change of the board election dates, because when the board election dates happened in July, this had already happened, and you had a year to sort of get up to speed before this budget hearing at the end. So no, I definitely understand. It's definitely, it's not easy to comprehend. There's a lot to it. So
No, and
I'm good.
I guess my frustration is I wanted to know, where were we reducing? And so then going through looking at these numbers, I'm like, okay, but we're increasing here and we're decreasing here and not comprehending what these programs are.
Right.
And so it's just wanting to making the best informed decision we can. And going through this, it's like, wow, it's not Greek, but it's definitely not English either.
Well, and that's why, on a lot of it, when, I even ask, when you look, I think, at the board level on some of these things, and I even, we'll have philosophical conversations with Dr. Meyer, administrators, and I go, some of it's just coding. So I don't get too worried about that. What I really get as the finance manager, I'm more concerned with the bottom line and how it all comes together, because that's really where the rubber's going to hit the road. And that's why I try to do some of this. So the certified staffing reductions, some of that could have been a certified staff member who is a speech language pathologist would be support services. Okay, so a certified staff member who is an elementary teacher would be in instruction. So that 700,000 is not on one line item in there, it's spread all over the place. And in fact, the cost of that teacher for that reduction is not only on the function line, it's also on the object line and the benefit line,
Right.
because they're there. So as we look at these things, some of Here's an example, how crazy it gets in school finance. So I can have a staff member who is, let's say they work half the time at Lakeland High School and half the time at the alternative high school.
Right.
So that person's budget code is now split between function 515 and function 517. But let's say for their half time at Mountain View, we can charge part of that or salary to Title I federal. So now I have a budget code of 512, starting with function 100, a budget code of 517, starting with function or fund 100, but then I have fund 251 with a 517. So this person has 3 budget codes that would be in 3 different places on that. And for us, on the benefit side, they're going to have an account code for FICA, for medical, life insurance, and Percy, and sometimes Percy leaves. That person, if we split that way, in our budget, would be represented on literally like 18 lines. So a lot of times when I'm looking at some of these things and I'm looking at the big picture, I want to get the coding right, and sometimes mistakes are right, and make that, but the overall number of our overall staffing numbers are the things that really are the things that I really try to focus on, and saying that we're budgeting on 240 teachers, and then in November, if we actually had 250, I would be concerned. So I have 10 more FTE. Do we have the revenues to support that based on budget? And whether it was budgeted instructional support instruction from the business personnel, the instructional people, they may care. But from my side, I'm concerned with the bottom line.
As a trustee, I want to make sure that our kids have adequate education,
No,
not have
absolutely.
instructors. And so in trying to understand the differences between these, understanding the instructional program and then is, it's concerning to know that 18 staff is not returning, but the numbers are increasing. And respectfully juggling this money is enormous. I understand that completely. So that's where I'm just looking at these things, trying to understand, not having really had any education in this is what you're going to get, and this is what you're looking at. I'm just kind of going, whoa, this makes no sense.
Right, and in previous years, especially the COVID has made it more challenging, is that we've always had more of a budget workshop and sort of budget 101 that we try to go over and explain sort of how, and sort of how things, even some of the coding, and how the state does that. I did that earlier.
That's another one of the lovely benefits of COVID-19, not getting to meet and go over a lot of these things.
Yeah.
It's always, right now I'm the only one that on board.
But we don't know if our enrollment's going up. So you said it concerns you that we're losing 18. We're not losing 18. We're just looking at attrition. Again, I will remind the board, I'm really trying to complete staff based on what we have now, and so that we didn't riff anybody, we didn't fire anybody, we didn't furlough anybody that didn't ask to be furloughed with the HR director. Right now, we're conservatively budgeting based on, and you're saying our enrollment's going to go up, not necessarily true. I will remind the board, number one, we don't know, we do not even know what our enrollment is going to be. I've projected everything forward, and I shared with the board my enrollment projections, but that's based on before COVID, before school closure. We do not know, and Mr. Wallace alluded to this, we don't know, even in my report later, I'll be talking about the next step the state's taking on what might happen in the fall and steps they're taking at the state level. So to be fiscally responsible, I really wanted to do conservative without affecting our current staff. And today talked to the classified district input team. I want to protect our current staff with the CARES money, being able to reinforce and give if we have bubbles like you're talking about, so we make sure we have good instruction levels throughout the district. At think if you look back over the last 4 years that I've been here, we have not had bubbles that have been out of control, like, we've always taken care of the bubbles that have, in that first week of school. So that still is my plan, but we just really need to see what's the enrollment gonna be. HCC, Hayden Canyon Charter, will be opening. Their plan is to open this fall. I was reminded last week by Mrs. Sexton, Miss Sexton and Chairman Wallace, who were here when the STEM Charter Academy, I wasn't here. They said it did, that the enrollment took a dip and it took 3 years to recover from that. So that's another thing that we're taking into consideration. Again, talk about enrollment and attendance. So those are things that we're just budgeting for, with making sure that we know where we're going to be before we put too much resources into additional staff. So we do have a plan for that. I just don't want to necessarily say that we know that enrollment's going to go up.
No, I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I appreciate that. But the documents are saying enrollment's going up. I don't have a magic ball. I know nobody has a magic ball. So I'm just going off of the information that's provided. And my concept of kids are going up, teachers are going down, I'm just, and I'm looking at these numbers, not fully understanding all the different categories of, special programs and this and that. And, this one's getting a lot of money and there's not a lot of salaries going out of it. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of this with respect to the fact that I get that we don't know if numbers really truly are going up. But
And will you go back to that one where you did the green showing down? He actually budgeted that it would be, he's budgeted that we're going to go down, that 213. So he's actually budgeting that we're gonna be not going up, that we're going down.
And this is the interesting slide. I think that the enrollment is projected to go up, but the day in and day out kids that are gonna be in the class is actually going down.
Yes.
So, planning for the worst, we can always hire people, we can always hire teachers. Much more difficult to bring somebody on overstaffed and then. So, even though the enrollment's going up, their anticipation is that not as many kids every day will attend. So enrollment's going up, but attendance is going down.
And then enrollment,
We need the teachers based on how many kids are in the class.
when I'm looking at the enrollment model, when I do that, like I said, I'm looking at it pretty analytically, and I just sort of let the numbers sort of run through. And then I do take a look at average and say what makes sense. I considered for this presentation just be flat. I could have put 45 to 86 there. But I think, honestly, I think that at the end of the day, we'll see that I think we'll have a few more kids. I certainly think it would not be responsible for us to assume, regardless of whether we have less numbers or they just show up less, that we're going to have the same amount of units funded by the state. I just think that's going down next year. I mean, that's my guess. We'll see that. There would be nothing more than I'd like to see that 213 be at 220. That would be great.
Yeah.
If we do that, then, but,
Yes,
right,
it would.
that would be good. But I'm just not convinced that's going to happen.
I am glad to see that we're planning to not increase. This sounds crazy, but I'm glad that we're not planning to increase the fund balance at the end of the year. Because, we've been adding to our savings, and I'm glad to see it flatline this year, because that means that we're spending more money on the budget. As Ramona, because I read your questions out, I thought they were really good. To at least see that level off and spend the money that we're getting in the schools, especially with the cutbacks. I was glad to see that kind of plateau, because we certainly need to show the patrons that, we've reached our threshold of, we call this our rainy day fund, but really, I mean, it's a fund balance for us to really cover ourselves, in the summertime when we're not getting revenues in. So I'm glad to see it's not continuing to go up. That would raise questions in my mind. But now that we've reached a healthy level, to spend the money we're getting in means that we're putting more money into the classrooms and the programs. So I just thought it
Yeah,
I like the platform that I saw.
we're trying to, keep it there, and it's always a guess on where your fund balance goes. And again, especially where we're funding Idaho now, where we're at, it's definitely a good fund balance. If you look at what um, if you remember the audit presentation by Hayden Ross, that actually we're 1% away from where they say we should be. They say that 16%, 16.66 is the minimum. That's what the auditors say. So, and that is recommended by the Governmental Accounting Board, that a public agency should have at least 2 months of expenditures covered. So, there's, getting to that conversation about fund balance, there's a lot of different philosophies where you can talk to some people saying that, well, you're close to where you should be, but you're not there yet. Where our policy is now, I think, is definitely adequate with how the state funds us. But having a higher fund balance, as we rely more on levy dollars to support our program, becomes more important because it becomes a cash flow problem. We want to get our levy collections twice a year, and so you have those low months where but your expenditures every month are pretty consistent, except for September, and they're usually a little higher. But otherwise, your expenditures are fairly consistent with your really following payroll.
I have a question for you, Brian. Does the state have any say over what our teacher to student, instructor to student ratio is? In other words, do they ever look at our ADA or our enrollment and say there's no way that you can adequately teach this many students with only this many staff?
Yes. So they have, for example, I did summarize it. Part of salary-based apportionment is part of that funding formula is they give you we earn 218.91 units. And so that many units funded 223 teachers at their funding level. If I had 215 units, that number would be less. I think you get 1.1 teacher per funding unit. And so they take a look on salary-based apportionment, and for example, is this our real one? Let me take a look. I'll use real data instead of my projection data.
Real data is good.
So, for example, here's our actual report, and I could share this with you later, but so for every funding unit, you get 1.021 of a teacher. And so since we had 218.91, that resulted in 223.5 teachers, roughly. We had on staff 237, so we were 14, 15 above that. They have the same formula also for like our counselors. We have 17, we got funded for 17 counselors, we have 24, so we're 7 above the standard. So the state says that you have to fund to that lower number, that number by the unit. If you don't, they will still pay you up. So let's say I had, it was 223 teachers, let's say I had 220. So you'd think the state would say, okay, well, you only have 220 staff, so I'm only going to give you your weighted average by 220, not by 223. Does that make sense? So we get a dollar amount per teacher, effectively. Well, the state actually, there's a section of the law called protection that if you are staffing at a lower level, that they will let you go 9.5% less than that 223 number. So I can literally have 20 teachers less than that number. However, the state saw a lot of districts doing that, so now that 9.5% number if you're not 50% of, it gets complicated, 50% above the average of districts of your size, and if you don't sort of keep the ratios, then you go down to 8.5% next year. Then 7.5, 6.5, 5.5. So Lakeland right now, we've never been reduced. We're 9.5 because we've always staffed above that number.
So there,
So they're,
it's a
so they,
safety net.
it's
There
sort of a
at
safe,
no
right.
time-
But you can look like at Post Falls right now, just for example, their percentage, I think, is down to 3.5. So that means they consistently don't staff to the number that the state does, or they're on the bottom, they're always on the lower half of big districts as far as their teacher staff ratios. But that's how Post Falls has been running their program. So eventually they're going to lose their protection if they keep that pattern. But we're there. So we've consistently as a district always been above those, that formula. And I don't, how that formula relates to anything valid, like, does it have anything to do with any reality? I don't know, but that's what we go by. And then we definitely have the class size guidelines of 23, 25, 28. 26, yeah, of our, for K6 and 712, sort of the recommended class sizes, target, say, from the state. And if you aim to sort of hit around there, then you should be, then generally you are going to be higher than this formula. But there is, yeah, but the state does have a protection saying, well, wait a sec, we're giving you money for salary, but you're not spending teachers. So there is a sort of a
Well, and the thing is.
method behind their madness.
Right, the state would never allow a district to staff so far below the necessity that it would affect negatively the instruction of the students need.
Well, ultimately, they just hold back money, and I guess they could step in. But ultimately, if you were so low, you know, as far as your ratios, they'd just say, well, we're only going to fund you what you have, not what the formula says you should have. And whether that's ever happened, I have no idea. But there is an incentive built in to make sure you spend. And just given the nature of our business, you know, most districts are going to be
Opposite problem.
yeah.
So, why don't we pay on the career ladder?
Well, that's a good question. One, we'd have to have agreed, it wasn't mandated to pay on it. One, we couldn't have done it by law, because by law, once a teacher had their primary contract, let's say it's $60,000 a year for a veteran teacher, they can't get less than $60,000 the next year. That's state law. Well, if we paid on the career ladder, they would have been down to 45 when it first came out. Because the career ladder, well, maybe it got up to 50, I don't know, was lower. So that was one reason the second reason that we haven't moved to a more career ladder model is that given where we are, if we did it, we can get this discussion at some point, we would, and if we sort of had the career ladder match the level of our compensation, we would go bankrupt. We couldn't afford it. And the reason that is that it takes, especially with the career ladder now, it takes our teachers longer, and this is traditionally, this is similar to the state of Washington and a traditional salary schedule. It takes our teachers longer to get to the top. And they also have to, you know, continuing to get education across to get to the top. The career ladder takes those barriers away. The career ladder, and I know they're having some master teacher premiums and stuff, things like that, but the career ladder effectively says we have the first 3 years of your residency. And once you get past that, once you get the professional rung, you just move down. Regardless of whether you continue your education, get a master's, and do any of those things. So people they move down, and now I think it's only 5 steps, you're at the top. So if I had to match our salary schedule now and have my top step at 70, effectively, so within 5 years or 8 years, every one of my teachers would be at the top step. The biggest gap I have between what the state gives me for a teacher and what it costs us is at that top step. So I would have, we just couldn't afford it. Well, we could if we wanted to supplement that with a much higher levy. So it's the career ladder is, I don't know, we're getting on a bird walk here. I think, and well-intentioned by the legislature, and it's a really good thing, and I think they focus on recruiting teachers to the profession. They never funded it to retain our highest and most veteran teachers, which has been an ongoing conversation with the legislature. But right now, most districts, especially districts in our area, don't really follow it. Lake Pend Oreille a little bit, and the districts that do follow it with fidelity, we're following the old salary schedule with the state too, and then usually smaller districts in South Central Idaho.
So what I do hear you saying though is we do have measures in place to incentivize our employees to continue to build on their skills to better our district and our students as we better their paycheck as time rolls on, correct?
Correct. We definitely reward experience and education on our salary schedule, which actually, when we have our IBB negotiations, has been a common interest of administration and the Education Association, the LEA, where they feel pretty strongly that if you are moving towards a master's or more credits, that you should be compensated.
Do the trustees have any other questions or comments for Mr. Wallace?
No.
I know it's a lot.
I'm done asking.
This is phase one for me, because we also have an opportunity now for the public to give comment or have questions as well. So I'm going to have Chrissy look and see if there are patrons that would like to ask questions.
Watch Spiral. Oh, no, wait.
Oh dear, some people aren't on mute. So, so if any patrons have questions for Mr. Wallace regarding the budget hearing, there is the raised hand option on Zoom that they can use to submit questions. And if patrons, I can unmute everybody, and if you want to keep yourself muted and not say anything, that'd be good, but I'm just trying to find the best way to capture everyone. Brian, we can also see it on that screen, so all, and if somebody would...
Can you do one at a time?
Yeah, there's... Do you want me to ask them one at a time?
I just think if we have everyone done, you think it's become out.
Then you told them to mute themselves if they didn't have anything to say, right?
Yep, that would be... I think that'd be... I'm going to scroll through. Hold on a second and see if there's any hands raised. And I'm not seeing any. So if, let's do it this way. If patrons, I'm going to unmute everybody. If you could please mute yourself if you don't have a question. There we go. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions or hearing anything. Everybody's muted.
I get it.
You must have given them a good presentation. It was very
I think they're watching American Idol or something.
Brian, I do have one person here. Jerry McDevitt would like to ask a question, it looks like. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm good. I don't have anything to say.
All
Yeah, that's at the pleasure of the vice chair.
Okay, budget hearing is now closed. Resume our board meeting with report and presentation agenda. I think we're going to bump Spirit Lake Elementary remote distance learning presentation.
I was gonna ask, I was gonna see if the annexation folks could go first, is that was one, okay.
Oh,
If that would be okay with you.
Is it good to come from action items and talk about?
Yeah,
I don't have a problem doing that.
Yeah,
I just don't know if it's
Chrissy
protocol.
said that we could do that, and they've been
You have been very patient.
very patient, so I was hoping that they could.
A lot of information though. Okay, so we will jump down to action items and get some information from the family here that was presented to us in our packets.
You guys want to go up to the podium?
I don't really want to, but.
Thank you for coming in.
There are 5 families on that list. 3 of the families have kids currently in them. Which then they're 8+ years. There are 2 families out of the 5 that don't have school yet. Years. So, school district, we want to stay. So. Did you want me to pull their presentation up?
If you want, or we can look at the.
So my family moved here from California in 2011, and my oldest son, who's 20, he graduated from Timberlake High School in 2015. When we first moved here, we were told that we needed to fill out the intra-district transfer form, I guess, and be tuition students. And so at that point, because we're only 5 minutes driving distance from the elementary school, opposed to Reese River, which is 25 to 30 minutes away, or even, it doesn't make sense in theory to drive that far, especially in the winter here, or to stick a child on the bus for an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. And so my family made the decision to be tuition students, and we were grateful for that opportunity. When that was, I guess, done away with, we were also thankful for that opportunity to not have to pay that fee, which was a little bit hefty, but we were willing to do it just to be in the district. But we were, kind of at that point grandfathered in, like we still had to fill out the transfer form, but we were included in the district. My oldest son was a 6th grader at Spirit Lake Elementary, and then I had a 1st grader at the elementary school. And so my kids have just kind of grown up in the district. And so this past year, applying for them to be in the district, being told a few days before that they couldn't, I had a kindergartner, that she couldn't be in the district was devastating for me. I love this district. I love the teachers. I was blessed to have Mrs. Rogers and this whole kindergarten team teach my kindergartner this year. Amazing. They are amazing. And what they did, so soon after the And I have friends who are in Priest River, and I have friends who are in Sandpoint School District. And it breaks my heart to hear that they didn't have kindergarten graduation, and they didn't have all of the benefits that Lakeland provides. And so I feel so blessed to be in this district, and I want to continue. And I got a job in the district just so that my daughter could be in this district. So, this is to me. And Alicia also works in the district for the very same reason, because she was amazing. And so she wrote the letter, and they had the NAP, and it is, beneficial to Bonner to let us go, because it doesn't make sense for them to travel, especially when our transportation already picks up on Adaya and even
Turns around at the
surpasses
next
our
one.
road. So it's not like there's an additional cost to including us in the district, besides the taxes, which I understand. So
Can I ask how many homes are on Adaya? In total?
I would say upwards of 15, maybe. Mhm.
So this is just 5 families, so this is fairly cut off right here, and this is the Dyer Road. The solid line is the current border between the 2 school districts. This right here is 3 properties, this is ours, these are the 2 neighbors that don't have kids currently in the district. So this longer one here, this is Kimmy's property, and then this is the 3rd family that is also in the district. She is a substitute and has been in the district for a while. Her kids have been in the district for 8 years.
So would you be cutting it off at her house? Is that what I'm understanding?
So
I'm visually challenged with math, so
So
just bear with me.
this kind of dotted dash line here around each of the properties, that's where the new borders would be. So it goes around.
It's
those
not
properties.
including everyone on Adaya.
Okay.
It's only adding those 5 families.
Right.
Because several of the families on our street are retired, and so there won't be children in that.
At the moment.
So this district includes 12 students that would be in the district. 3 of them are not school age yet, but will be kindergartners in the years 2022, 24, and 25. So they're 2 years out. So there's 9 current students that look like in the district.
And we understand there's growth, and obviously, the kids who are in the district deserve first to attend Lakeland, attend Spirit Lake or Timberlake Junior High or high school. But we feel like we've been part of this district for so long that we would really like to be included in going further.
The kids are currently going there as it is, and transportation is already going past our road.
And especially, the kids are involved in the schools. They're A students, and my son is involved, and my other son involved in sports and band, and, to tear him out of that and have to send him to another location, especially at this grade level, would be devastating. So we would just really like for you to consider allowing this annexation to proceed.
Well, I'll tell you, given the state of, you saw the budget hearing and how tight things are, and how we're gonna be very, critical of our finances next year. I think you guys did a fantastic job going through the appropriate channels to get into the school. This process was not a small task. So I definitely commend you for doing that, and I appreciate you, instead of just, complaining that this, these privileges aren't being offered anymore. You took a step to get included. And I just think it's fantastic. I commend you.
I also want to just thank Dr. Meyer and Chrissy, because I attempted attempted several years ago after tuition, stopped trying to get our road annexed in, and my voice was unheard. Like, I couldn't get past the door. And this year I approached Chrissy first about it, and she never let it go. Even I know how busy she is, and I know how busy Dr. Meyer is, and I appreciated, like, when I would come in the building, hi Kay, hey, I wanted to talk to you about the annexation, and just, like, letting me know, that she hadn't forgotten that we requested that, and talking to Dr. Meyer about it. So I'm thankful for that, because you heard our voice. So.
Answered so many of our questions.
Yes.
I think that's it.
If you want to see more, if you need more information, there are maps from the end of our road to both elementaries, the Bear Lake Elementary, and then Idaho Hill is where we're zoned to go, and then both junior highs and high schools, the distances for all of them.
Yeah.
Our road.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay, so, at this point, do I have a motion to either approve or deny the request for annexation as presented?
I have a question, maybe Dr. Meyer knows this. So we vote on the annexation, so we all say yay, and it goes on. And then the voters vote on the annexation, it goes to a ballot after that.
Actually, the next step, and Chrissy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the next step, on Wednesday next week, the West Bonner County, I talked to that superintendent, is going to their school board. After they make their decision, the minutes from this meeting, the minutes from there, all go down to the State Department of Education, then they make a determination, and they State Board of Education. It may not ever need to go to a vote. They may make the decision. Yeah.
Okay. It has to go to a vote.
No.
Why did you do it for Lane the last one?
So I talked to Tracy Bent down there, and she, I have it written down somewhere, but she said unequivocally it would have to go to a vote.
So, Mr. Wallace?
Yeah.
It didn't go to the vote in Coeur d'Alene, so I'm confused, so he might be able to clear it up.
Well, the title, the code says that it does have to go.
Right, so,
33.3 says, and that's fine. We don't, I was just curious.
Yeah, just,
And we didn't do it in Coeur d'Alene one, so.
yeah, and just for your information, so, yeah, the process, generally what happens is the request, goes to both districts. And the boards can be neutral, supportive, or say no. But those minutes do go down to the state board regardless. The state board can overrule the districts. They can just say, well, both people wanted it, or districts, and we can say no, or both, let's say both said no, and the state board says, no, we think it's in the best interest, we're approving it. Then, you do have to have a vote of the people who reside in that area to approve it, of the section. Now, there is a section of the law that if there's nobody that lives close enough for the land, like it's sort of vacant land, and I think it's with school, I can't know the exact, then you don't have a vote because there's nobody to vote. But that's what happened in Coeur d'Alene,
Okay.
is there wasn't any residents effectively.
Because Mr. Wallace and I went and spoke, and there was never any vote, they just changed it, so that was.
Right, but I think that's another aspect, and it's tougher to have that anymore, just as Idaho gets more crowded.
Does everybody in their area vote, or did just the people that are gonna be annexed in vote?
Only the people who are being impacted by the change in taxing district.
So only the ones around those, the dotted lines would be the ones. That vote. Now, if they are annexed in, given that would we receive their tax dollars?
Correct.
Yes.
How
That's the reason why I'm like, okay, if you want to be heard, that's what I'm telling you. When I said to these people, Chrissy and I met a huge group, and I said, if you guys want to pay our taxes, it's almost twice as much tax rate currently, I'm not gonna say forever, over the West Bonner.
There may be a delay for the year because with all that, you have to go to the tax
They would
commission.
But you see what I'm saying? I can look at other patrons and say, they are paying, if they're annexed into our district, they are paying our taxes, they are in our district. That's the difference. That's the big difference right there. And I think that it speaks to how much they value our district that they're willing to do.
All right, so if there are any other questions, someone would like to make a motion to approve the request for annexation as presented.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the annexation request as presented. I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. All right, so if you guys want to, you guys are more than welcome. I know you've been here.
Yeah, you were.
A couple of hours.
More fun.
And then I say we go into the presentation. Elementary. Thank you.
This is Ashley Rogers. I'm Deborah Cashman, and this is Jenny Beveridge. And we've been the kindergarten full day teachers for the last, 3 years together. And then this year, thanks to our superintendent, after a couple of weeks of having 27 children in our class, she added Jenny to our So we have 3 kinders, and they had 19, and 17. So 19, 18, and 17. So when we went to remote learning, we took a big breath. And learned a lot in a very short amount of time. We would find something and jump at it. So we just wanted to share kind of what we did during this crazy time and how we included our kiddos and just enjoyed them from a distance.
Well, and we had a blast doing it as well. So it's not like it was a burden. I mean, obviously there were tough times, but we had a really good time doing this.
And if they try to tell you that it's less work at home, it's not. We worked more hours at home doing this than we would have been at school. It was a lot of work. So, teaching kindergarten on Zoom is like herding cats. Mute all, mute all.
Again and again.
And again.
Oh, let me show you my teeth.
Okay, on my eyeball, really. It's a challenge. The talkative ones always figured out how to turn off the music.
So, we stayed connected with Class Dojo. That was a big one, was being able to communicate with families. And initially it was like information, and we were kind of feeling, not pushback, but a little bit of hesitation that there was so much information going out to parents that we kind of like recalculated what we were doing, and we tried really hard to only give information on certain days of the week. And then it went to, we will give you the links that we went through on Zoom and what you could do for homework. So we went to a much neater approach to communicating with families through Class Dojo, which was phenomenal. Being able to send a message and it gets sent to parents like a text message, and it was direct communication. It was so quick, it was awesome.
And they got to communicate with us.
Yes.
So in the beginning, when we first sent home packets, they would send pictures of their work that they would finish. Or the other things that they would do, like making brownies with mom, anything they did, they would send us pictures of things that they were doing. So we definitely had to learn a new way to teach in such a short amount of time. So you can see me doing our wonderful VOAC lesson on teaching our letters. And at first I would let them all, I could hear all of them, and then it's like, no one's learning anything. So we learned that the mute button was great during learning. I'm not sure how I'm gonna go back to fall and not be able to mute the class. But it was really cute because they would still raise their hands.
Yeah.
And then we also, which we'll get into later, we also had to figure out a new way to do field trips. So we'll talk about that later. So we did have fun seeing each other's faces, and for some of them, they had a hard time not being in school. I mean, at some that we referred to the counselor and things like that. So we tried to make it as fun as we could and just have time to talk. So we would do sharing, and sharing and more sharing, so that they could talk. But they learned about, by the end, they learned how to take turns. They learned how to mute and unmute. Learned how to turn off their cameras. Please turn your camera back on. But they had a good time. We sang. We did lessons like we would do in class. So some of the same stuff we did in class, we did on Zoom.
Scavenger hunts.
Yeah, scavenger hunts. They used we did whiteboard work. I mean, it was, go in your house and find a noun that begins with G. You know, it was real fun. Very interactive. And then even at birthdays, so we would surprise them. I'd always tell the parents, let them come on a few minutes late, so everybody make a sign, and they hold it up, and then we bring them in, and then for their birthday. So we got to do that a couple times in my class too. With so much fun. And then we all did kind of different activities. So we did some recycling. It's hard to see your picture, but we did some arts and crafts out of recycling for Earth Day. I had sent my kids all experiment with sunflower seeds, and so they all planted sunflower seeds and grew one in a closet and one in the sun to see how they would grow. And so they sent me pictures of what they look like. So we set up our Clever pages. That's something that the district has for us, and we included all of our different activities we've done with our Chromebooks this year on there. So parents had those available once they got onto Clever. They could click those and it'd be their normal games that they played in class and their learning activities. We also would upload our daily Zoom videos so that on here too. So that way if they missed one, it was right there for them to be able to do. One thing that we started, oh man, it was like the first week, I heard about this class kit. It was Sunday before we went back to school during spring break. On Friday, I talked to the teachers at Ben Kiefer, because I always say something that's like, girls, we have to do this. This is so cool. So Sunday we started. Yeah, it was crazy. So, best thing ever. We wanted to just share some of our assignments that we created that were super fun with you. So we are going to log on really quick. So this is like we're logging in as a student. So, and we shared this, so we would all create, and then we'd send it all out to all of our kindergartners. So each week they would get like just a different amount of assignments, but we didn't want to overload them, and so we would take them away at the end of the week, so they didn't see like just 20 assignments. It was only like 5 or 6 for the week. Yeah, we didn't hide them. They were assigned, so they only saw Tuesday on Tuesday, and then the next day we'd see Tuesday and Wednesday. So, and we talk about them in our Zoom class, so we would introduce them what we're gonna do, and then they would go and do it. So, yeah, so this is one that I made, this was the Easter Bunny reading and writing. So, it says, I need your help, love the Easter Bunny, and then they would click on this link and listen to the story. And you could, it was so cool because I'll just go ahead and put it.
Did you like the story? Circle a sentence that tells what you think. I liked the story. I loved the story. I did not like the story.
So it gave us an opportunity to put, we could read it all to them. So if they couldn't read or didn't have anybody read with them, it was something they could do independently. And so then they had all these creative tools up here that they can draw, they can type, and then they go to the next page. And so they had to fill out this one, these are each play buttons of every little thing for your thinking of kindergartner. I can't quite read all these words. So this is an Easter Bunny assistant application, applying to be the Easter Bunny's assistant. And so they had to do like, how many hops can you do in 1 minute? How many eggs should each child get? And they fill this out. And then we had a Easter Bunny, I can help you, I will. And they would draw a picture and they could either type their answer or write with their finger what they would do. And so we even were able to pull up everyone's like work and show, and the kids loved this. They loved seeing what their friend Susie would do and all that. So it was just, they loved that part. And you would see more participation after oh, my friend did it, so I should do it too. So then there's an Easter Bunny drawing that they could do in this lesson, and then just a good job, you finished your lesson, submit it. And we could see it all in like real time, so you could see them working on it, and you could give them stickers of like, we had these big eyes that said, I see you working, good job, I'm so proud of you, and it was super fun.
Speaking of, I have to figure out how to use this thing. In keeping with teaching while being remote learning.
If you go up to the minus,
if I can get my mouse there.
then you can see it.
So then it's really small now, but you can see the whole thing now. So if you click on the button, it tells you, if I can get to the button.
Read the words and then place the correct picture by the word.
So then we can go here and I can take this and I see that the scissors are cutting the paper. So I can take this and I can scroll it over and put it with cut. So you can go through, and they were able to listen and see the picture, read the picture, and go through. And they know that these are all short U's. So same thing, reading the sentence, the pig is in the mud, and you can scroll and move your pieces, which was so cool. And then just a word sort. So trying to find your short U's in your pictures. And so going through and figuring out what everything is and moving it to the correct place. That one was, I don't know. Sun, maybe, yes, because there's sunglasses. Or a bun. They're both buns. And you can move the sun. So just a fun, interactive thing for them to do. I think there was so this one was typing in so they could click. And you knew that that was a sun, so you could put an N.
And it would grade it for them.
Grade it
So we
for them.
put grade, like you could, it would answer.
It would tell them how many questions they got correct out of the total. And then on this one, they could either write it, so you could come up here and you could get your little pencil and you could see that this is a mug. And so then this is gonna look horrible, but you could type mug in the line. So it's that chance for them to not just have to type things, or they have a chance to write it, they could draw it, however they need.
Can they use their finger on the Chromebook?
Yeah,
Yes,
Do it?
yes.
And that was the other really cool thing we didn't mention, but our class, we were cohorts for Chromebooks, so all our kinders knew how to use Chromebooks, so they could teach their parents. Because a lot of them didn't know. So they taught their parents a lot of stuff about computers.
And it was nice because going into the whole thing, that's how once they got the Chromebook, they logged into their Clever account. And so they got into their Clever account and they knew that they could find anything that they needed to do would be right on the teacher page in their Clever account. And so it was really nice for them to be able to already be comfortable with that.
So the other one, let's see, we also did math. We tried to do each of the subjects during the week. And so this one, sorry, my eyes are so tired from looking at screens today. So this was place value, and they could drag the tens up to make the numbers. And so they could, I didn't change it. So they can drag it up and make 24. And I learned later on that I can make these boxes smaller around each one. We learned as we went, the little tricks. So then they go through and they can do all the numbers. Fun and colorful. And then they got to pick a number and make it themselves. So that was, we learned too we're not gonna put this next time. Raise your hand. When you had all the kindergartners there, they would raise their hand. So that was this little hand up there. And when they finished, they click this little green, what's the name? I can't see. Down below. Oh, there. You switched it. Okay. It's a white there. There we go. Told you.
Although we did an A, it's first.
So they do this little green hand, and when you're the teacher and you see everybody, you see all these green hands.
It drove me nuts.
And they would do
There's
like
like
every page.
300 hands to look at, and they would click it on every page for you to check. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I have to check every hand before I go to bed at night. And they're like, Ashley, don't worry about it. I'm like, what do I do?
And then once in a while, I hit the yellow one and be like, oh, yellow hand.
So that was just one of the just amazing things that we found that just worked for kindergarten. And it was just so much fun. It was so much fun creating it. We were fighting over like lessons. I know, you already got 2 this week. I want that one. So it was really fun.
And it made half as much work because we did it for all the classes.
Yes.
So it wasn't she had to make assignments, I had to make them, and we just made them and shared them.
So another thing we did was for the last 7 years I've been in kindergarten at SLE. We've done Mudgy Moose and Millie Mouse, and then Deb came on and we just continued it. If you don't know what it is, it's a book about downtown Coeur d'Alene. Mudgy Moose and Millie Mouse are playing hide and go seek, and Millie hides on Mudgy Moose's antlers, and Mudgy's looking throughout downtown Coeur d'Alene for this mouse that's on his antlers. And it's a book that and they have statues that you go, and so we have taken our kids down and done this field trip every single year. And so it was really hard not being able to this year. So we said, no, we are going to do it. So we went ahead and did it. And so we wanted to show you.
I edited this in maybe an hour and a half's time because we needed it for the next day. So the sound is very up and down.
It was a very good
It was very windy. So, I mean, don't take the editing don't read it. It wasn't very good, but. Yes.
No, I'm so glad to get it. It's so fun to see you guys. It's so long.
It's a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful place. Why don't we go look around? I wonder if they know where we are.
Do you think you know where we are? Where are we?
George and your friends know where we are.
Let's see.
Oh my goodness, Mrs. Cashman, there's a moose behind you. A moose! A moose! Oh my God.
Maybe the library?
Thank you. They're such good parents. So here's the
adults running through the park.
And there's these guys watching us. Like, are you on a scavenger hunt?
I was also very tired reading this thing. Little short run.
Have you seen Millie Mouse hiding in the library? Millie peeked from behind that ceiling. Shh. The librarian chuckled and said, "No, Millie isn't hiding in the library." Reggie wondered why she was chuckling. "They do anyway," he said, and he continued on his way. Where should I look next? Thought Reggie. Millie loves people and stores and cars and lights and restaurants. Maybe she's hiding somewhere downtown. Downtown? Huh. Wonder where that could be. Let's go find out. Mr. Casey, there's a playground. It's a huge playground. If you see it, then we play with your car. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. This is not a let's wait.
Just to know there are no swings anywhere. We got there, we're like, there's no swings.
So we're going through this field trip as we would had the kids been with us. So we're following it the same way. And so the park is in the same place that they would have seen it.
That's awesome.
What do you think we could do? Hey, is there an ice cream down there? Oh, I think so. Let's go get ice cream. Oh, let's go get ice cream. There's ice cream up there. What's your favorite flavor? Mint chocolate chip. I like food tracks.
Nice.
No, I haven't either.
Never seen him.
Just to know we never did get ice cream.
I was just gonna say, you got sidetracked.
Never got the ice cream.
Never got ice cream.
This is so pretty out here. That is not safe. We're on a field trip.
We're on a field trip.
Oh, yes, we do. Let's go. Where did he sleep in this whole park? Wait a minute. There he is. Oh, there. Show me. Show me.
Really good job. You
So-
love those kids well. Good
So,
job.
we would like to take another virtual field trip next year to, Mudgy Millie's next book. It's in Australia. So, can you find it in the budget? So, we were really thankful that we got to come back, and we were having conversations. This was really close.
Carrying
Yes,
conversation.
it's okay, I will do it. She really wanted to do graduation, and we really wanted to end the year. And so, you ever seen the movie Groundhog Day? That was our last week of school.
Over and over and over again every day.
We would do the same thing, and at the end of graduation, saying goodbye to kids. And that was hard doing it once, but we did it 5 times. So,
And
that was tough.
it was amazing to see even messages from people that don't even have kids that go to our schools comment on seeing our kindergartners graduate
'Cause we did it
every single
outside.
day. It was just really cool.
And all the people driving by would honk when they'd see him out there and their little graduation.
And that one kid that's in the yellow that I did on the, and he's jumping up, it's like the best picture ever.
So here is your class of 2030.
Part of them. Yep. So we did a picture of each one. Yep. So I threw a little more. So I just had to brag. So this is a Lakeland grad, my daughter, my youngest. She Lakeland and one of those blue ones, they're the big ones. They're all important. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you guys for waiting through the budget hearing.
Yeah.
That was worth it.
As a parent of a child who is in Mr. Rogers' class, like, I am so impressed by their work and their dedication. And Chloe didn't miss a beat. Like, she didn't get to participate in everyday school, but she got to talk to her friends every day on Zoom and see her teacher, and it was so important. Thank you guys so much.
Very much.
Well, team, the other way would have been to be with the Given the circumstances. We did the best we could.
Good job, ladies.
Thank
you. Okay. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Thank you.
She didn't get a charger.
Oh, okay.
I just need to ask you some questions. But maybe we'll do it another time, but. I don't know, if you have a second. We're taking a comfort break. I like when you're sending schools where teachers and attorneys already brought lands in there. It makes such a difference. People in classrooms.
Yeah. It was emailed to you.
No, I know.
Okay.
I know.
Sounds good. My daughter's. Started boarding. Well, last year I sort of started.
But my granddaughter loves him to death. And he just, little kids, and he has that real high pitched balloon voice, spin the silver, and use it. I mean, I just thought it would remember. He's huge, all over the fridge, you know, stuff in the fridge, everybody parents love, but that's watching.
literally was probably one of the first.
So each of these.
And Kevin, his friend,
It didn't come up like that.
first two.
It came up,
This was about-
it came
They
up
didn't
and it
let
looked,
him.
it had like agenda.
So he was.
No, it was weird. It didn't come up like this.
So, okay, you, now you can put on any approved behaviors and all those attachments.
No, this is
Really
where,
like
this is
this.
where it was.
I
This
want you
is
to
where it
do
was.
it.
Yes, I did, and then it came up.
See, this isn't what I see on the
Okay,
end.
okay, so that's why where are they getting all of this? I should have kept poking around in there. No, I don't.
Now I know.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm getting too old.
Hi there, how are you? Good, how are you? I'm just finally getting around to giving a lanyard holder. It's taken long enough. I don't think so. You know, because I think
Chrissy, do we have lanyards? We don't have lanyards.
it's okay. No big deal.
Did your foot break? Did her foot break?
No,
She didn't get one.
I made a joke. Oh, you can get a dollar?
Yes,
I just
that's
made a
right.
joke.
Say, I think we should get them for the board, they don't even get paid.
We have a board, we have a board, we have a board budget, you guys have.
Even if it's all good, no big deal. How have you been?
Really good.
Good.
Um,
So just any dollar store? Oh, they're cute too, okay. I'll go get one then. I thought they were kind of $1.50.
I was actually trying to find one. I don't know where this is. Because I went to the bathroom.
Bathroom store. That sells the. Thinking that they might have, yeah, she's like, they would carry this. You should. What are you thinking? All you have to do is order some turtle with some China. Or green.
Went to school in Rockville, and the real fun. So
Busy, real busy, but good.
Yeah. You work from home?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
It has its purpose.
I know, my husband does too.
Yeah,
It's nice because he gets his work clothes with his families, but yeah.
yeah, but you never get away,
People thing,
right? You
yeah.
never, well, I'm good with those people. It's the.
Remember, she's an INTJ.
Yes.
INTJ, right? Yeah.
So that's a perk for her. Yeah. It's not being able to get away from the work.
Yes, it's always
Right,
there,
because
haunting you and
if I-
calling you and
Right.
wooing you.
Yes.
And now you heard them and what it's like for people like you, that
Right.
that's your profession, and they're realizing that it's not like, oh, it's easy, you just stay at home.
Right.
Like, they're realizing, like, they're appreciating the fact of what people in your type of position have been saying for a long time.
Exactly. Especially, you know, I'm sure you, everybody else probably has that too, you know, there's certain hours of the day that you're devoted to all the employees or the contractors or the customer or whoever. So then you have to carve out your time, which is usually between, 3 in the morning till about 8, and then about 8 p.m. to about 11, you know?
You have these little
windows of
opportunity.
Exactly, yeah.
And then some days you're like, wait, I have not been like, I have not even seen what it is like outside, or if I've gone, like, I have to like take a break and like actually go get a breath of fresh air and get away. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to walk out there.
Like intentionally, you can't just do like,
Right. You have to, and people call me, like my phone's set to where it just automatically shuts off, otherwise I'd never be off of it, right? I'd be answering people and
All the
talking, but yeah, it's like it automatically shuts off before it.
Good.
Otherwise it's never goes away.
Yeah, you'd be like 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are the same.
I think everybody made it in there.
This is not a good day.
So I think we're at the point where we will do superintendent's report.
Right, so I'm, members of the board, I just got a few, items to report on. Some that have been asked and some in follow-up. So, the first one is a follow-up, that you asked about, Trustee Grissom, about the Lakeland Junior High School projects that we've done. And so, Jimmy's Roofing is doing the contract for this. The PO that was initially done was $297,664. The roof repairs have started on the project. You've probably driven by and seen the slides and they've been up on the roof. It's completed, supposed to be completed by the end of the month. And the payments so far, we've had progress payments of $29,766. And then we've had $119,064 for the project so far. They've done just for those that don't know, that they have done our prior roof projects when we had that 1.3 million. Mr. Wallace talked about that earlier with Spirit Lake Elementary, Timberlake High School, and Twin Lakes Elementary. I will say that they have done all the warranty work that we've had. Anything that hasn't been done or something flashing at Timberlake High School, we had some issues that continued in room 300. I don't know if you remember that. They came back and all of that has been warranty. Yeah, been warranty work. So we've been really happy with that company and their follow through on that. The second thing we've been doing in all the interior repairs to the water damage. Remember we did the, and you guys saw that. So they've been working on that and the ceilings and all of that have happened from that. They're scheduled to start in July, replace all of that, and then by August, before we get that staff back, should be done at early August for that. Something that's really near and dear to the hearts of the staff there is painting every room. We had several scheduled, and then Ms. Sexton went over and had met with some staff, and they're like, it would be really great if we could. And since we didn't complete all the projects that were in our initial 495 that the board had, 450 that the board had approved up to 450, we weren't deciding not to do all of that. The painting for every room, an accent wall is going to be done, which will really spice it up a lot. So that's going to be done. It's started right now. You can see that. And then have you noticed the exterior doors that are the Lakeland green outside? So they've done the exterior doors. If you drive by, you can see that. And then the tree that was causing the sewer problems that we talked about, that's been removed and that piece has been fixed. And then other projects they're doing is repairing a section of gutter, and then there's going to be landscaping that they're going to finish. You can see the little bit out front they've done also. So it's really shaping up very nicely there. Okay, so that's Lakeland Junior High School. One other thing that I wanted to report after last month, we had talked about, and I asked Mr. Wallace, what was the land? Remember we talked about the board training, the land acquisition. We had sold 2 parcels, and I said that that was going into a separate account with the board. So Mr. Wallace said the land acquisition fund is $191,203. So 191,203.
And Dr. Meyer?
Yep.
Just that is part of the plant facility fund balance. So we're estimating to start the year with 600,000. So 191 of that 600,000 is sort of dedicated to the land acquisition.
Okay. But again, we did that. Mr. Wallace and I recommended to the board, and Mr. Irons was on it, like we recommended that it be put aside so that people couldn't use it on other things. It was just for land acquisition, knowing that the district was growing. The next thing is graduation. I would like to say, we had several concerns at the last board meeting. There were several things that we had a special board meeting about graduation. And I hope you have received some positive comments. There was lots of concerns and questions before. I hope the board liked it. If anyone wants to speak to it, I know you were at Lakeland High School. Chairman Olmsted was with me at the Timberlake High School. Is wonderful. And Trustee Grissom was with me at Mountain View, if anyone wants to speak back to it. We just had a ton of positives, and people have sent me screenshots of like Facebook things and things talking, people that had lots of concerns saying how great it was. Several people have emailed me and said, I wish we could do it like this every year, and they want to do live feeds and stuff. So I really feel very super grateful that the board went forward with the plan and that it worked out and that everybody seemed to be really happy with the results.
I'll tell you that Lakeland High School graduation I was at with Lisa. I mean, I've been to a lot of graduations, and this is one of my favorite. I mean, it was just such a neat experience. I mean, just all the people being able to park in their cars and be comfortable, and their kids were in there with them, and then you could hear everything because it was on the radio. So it didn't matter where you were sitting. There wasn't mumbling, and you couldn't see what was going on because there was these two jumbotrons. And I'm telling you what, I just bumped every single one of those kids, and smiles for miles. They had so much fun. I would like to see us do a venue like that, and maybe collaborating with the area schools, because it was such a neat experience. It wasn't stuffy. It was pleasant. I mean, obviously we didn't get rained on, but it was awesome. Super awesome.
And one thing I would say, Trustee Grissom and I were at Mountain View. That was the week before, and it wasn't as relaxed as the next. We had to be 6 feet apart, social distancing, and they didn't fist bump us. But one thing I would add next year, definitely the fist bump with them going through would have been. It was really nice. That was really special.
I did watch a portion of the one that you and Chairman Olmsted were at. Watched the kids going through and all that. It looked like everybody's having a great time.
I drove past now, and it looked like it was a pretty good time too.
Yeah,
All
it was.
And all the people.
Yeah.
It was good. It's very special because they get to say something. Each of the graduates gets to speak. That's really special.
That's awesome.
The third thing is the school visitation week, and we've had several people talk about it, and the 3 kindergarten teachers from Spirit Lake. Again, we did have questions. I told you that there was some mixed patron results, mixed staff people ahead of time that was really concerned about it. I do want to read 2 things that came in from staff people. I've had lots of parent communication thanking the district for doing that, and thanking the board for the approval, because the board was the one that gave the approval for that to happen, and without board support, we would not have been able to have that. So I really want to thank the board for your confidence and your trust in me that we could go forward with that, because again, you heard other people say surrounding districts did not take the chance to do that. And so I really, really appreciate it, because I feel like it turned out very positive. I even had some high school students that wrote me directly but I want to read you 2 staff things. Dr. Meyer, myself and 3 staff are having lunch together reflecting on this week, and just want to say thank you. All 3 of us were cynical and doubted the idea of going back, and we were wrong. It was such a beautiful week, so we wanted to tell you thank you. Thank you for making a hard decision, standing by it, doing what's best for kids, and being a strong leader. We appreciate it, and you have a great summer. And then another staff person, I know many have questioned why we have this visitation week, but I would like to personally thank you for the opportunity to visit with my students. Today was my first day where 5 students who showed up truly needed closure. We learned how to play kickball together against 6th graders, and they shined. They showed grit, persevered, and had amazing sportsmanship. They told me school was one of their favorite places to be. They told me they missed me and the school more than they ever thought they would. One girl said it was funny how she was looking forward to getting to come to school today, since she had drug her feet daily during the school year to even go up and go to school. I received extra essays and poems that I was not expecting from a student who does not enjoy completing work. It was a bright moment for me, and I felt that you would enjoy knowing that our students are support they need to wrap up this awkward time. Thank you to you and the school board. That's a fourth grade teacher. So I had several, but I just thought that you needed to know, like, people definitely doubted that it was the right thing to do, but afterwards, I think, just like graduation, like, we really maybe took a slight little risk and took a chance on it, and I think they both turned out well. I'm not saying they always will, but I thought that was both really positive. I also wanted to give you the attendance for the week. So Apple 57, these are the number for the whole week, they just took attendance because I wanted the board to know how many people showed up. So Apple 57%, Timberlake High School 78%, Timberlake Junior High School 74%, Spirit Lake Elementary 62%, Twin Lakes Elementary 54%, Garwood 49%, Lakeland High School 82%, Lakeland Junior 36%, John Brown Elementary 64%, Mountain View 59%, and Betty Kiefer 85%. So that is just amazing, I think, for that. Number 4, the next steps. I know it's later on the agenda, but if you don't, I'm just going to say it all now if that's okay with you. The next step, we have subcommittees that have been set up, and I wanted you to know this came just yesterday from this group. So the state working group with the State Board of Education and the State Department and the Governor's office have created subcommittees. So when people ask us, like, what are we doing for next fall, and there's been several questions coming up, these are the subcommittees that have been set up. Liability issues, and the liability issues we'll be looking at liability coverage, negligence, physical distancing, and liability waivers. They have a whole subcommittee on that. School operations, busing, budgeting, childcare, athletics, absentee plans, disciplinary actions for students, facility use by community members, access to supplies, physical distancing. Number 3 is student learning, equity, access to supplies, assessments. Number 4, staffing, managing vulnerable staff, contracts, PD, capacity building for teachers, PPE, masks, cloth face covering stuff on the actual, and absentee plans for staffing. That's number 4. And number 5 is toolkit. So childcare responsibilities for taking control of the situation if there's a crisis in a role, if there happens again, enrollment, guidance to district, steps for reintroducing education line of authority, jurisdiction, which I thought was really important because we ran into that ourselves, jurisdiction for making final decisions, what to do with the community spread, contingency plans, and that's toolkit number 5. So there's 5 subcommittees set up, and they're getting representation throughout the entire state. They have chairs throughout, and then they are getting people, teachers, classified, board members, they're all staffed with that throughout the entire state. So that's the next steps that we have. They're going to meet the next 3 Mondays in a row, and the deliverable guidance is supposed to be coming out to us by June 30th. So we, by the end of the month, should have that ready to go. And then the last thing on my superintendent report is there is not an executive session tonight, but normally I would give you my May full progress in there, but there's not one on the agenda. So if it's the pleasure of the board, but I can either give you that tonight and give you the May one, or the other option is I could add on these first 2 weeks of June. I mean, that we just got this last week. I could add that on and send it to you all this weekend to be at that next June meeting if you would prefer. So I can do either, whatever you would prefer.
I think just add it to it.
Yeah.
Okay. You're good with that? Okay, so I'll just add on the 2 weeks of June and I'll send it to you all this weekend. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so superintendent's report, we move on to action items. Board may approve all of the following by a single, or we can group them together. Consent agenda, minutes of the previous meeting, HR items, regular special bills. If you guys want to go over them individually, or we want to approve them as one. Any questions about any of them? A motion to,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, as presented, all of it together, meeting minutes, HR items, regular and special bills, as presented.
I second that.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye, raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, so on to the action items. We've already taken care of number 5, so we'll get into the approving the budget as presented. Do we have any more discussion about that before we bring a motion? If not, can I hear a motion to either approve or deny the 2020-2021 budget as presented?
I make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 budget as presented.
I have a motion, do I hear a second?
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
I do need to make a roll call vote on this one.
Okay. We will have a roll call vote.
Trustee Major, but we're doing a roll call vote, so you can say yes or no. Trustee Grissom. No. Trustee Thompson. No. And Trustee Irons.
Yes.
So that motion would die. Unless trustees have more discussion on that item.
Not quite sure how to proceed, but the motion dies. Is there any discussion that would make a difference at this point in time?
I think my main concern with it is, all of the cuts that we see, and I understand the fiscal responsibility and not knowing where we're going forward and all that, but I'm still concerned, that there might be a way, even though I did read through, Mr. Wallace's answers back to my questions, that there would be a way within the budget to come up with what's now only 1.3 million as opposed to 2.3 million of the shortfall. Because we're in such uncharted territory and we don't know, I don't know that it warrants what I perceive as the drastic cuts and no filling of the positions that are either retiring, leaving, or whatever. I don't, because we don't know what's going to happen. There's so many unknowns right now. We don't know where the budget's going. We know what the governor said, but I wish that there was a way that there was more middle ground. And going back to even what Trustee Thompson had said earlier, when she brought up about the rise in the numbers, and although I know Mr. Wallace presented these numbers, but ever since I've been here, all we have heard is about growth, and the need to build. And now we're cut. And I know those things can happen, but they're still building and we're still growing. And we've seen every month, retirements, resignations, what have you, and then another 18 more. I just, and not that I don't think that the district or the other people put in the effort to try and find the funds. I don't even think that, but I just feel that we could take some of the fund balance or money from somewhere else and fill a little bit more of the gap. know, so I
No,
don't know,
that's good, that's a good concern.
I don't like to put the district in a position where we don't have an approval of a budget. That's not good for anybody, you know? But I do have those concerns. And then I still have lots more questions, and I just feel like I don't have the information. So based upon the information that was presented, I just don't feel comfortable.
And I was a little, you had made the statement that you saw us leveling out, but by what I saw and tried to figure out, I saw our fund balance growing by $1 million from the end of the 2019-2020 to the 2020-21, horrid, between those 2 years. And I don't understand. I mean, I would completely agree that maybe we need to maintain and stay static, but not grow when we're cutting back. I don't understand that. And so for me, mine is complete lack of knowledge. And in trying to understand in such a quick measure, and learning recently about the whole workshop process, knowing this July 1, it has to be presented then. Understanding why we have all these other, it's just a whole concept of understanding. And I'm being asked to make a decision with inadequate knowledge on my part in understanding. So it's very challenging for me to know we are doing the best we can by increasing the savings account, but decreasing over here. I don't understand that.
So just a question for you, because you said that you see it growing by $1 million. But in our proposed budget for 2020, 2021, beginning budget is $5.3 million or $5.2 million, and the ending fund balance is $5.3 million. So that's really static. If you look at our projected budget for this year, and in the previous years, we've been growing by $1 million, basically, or $1.2 million, $1.3 million. So like in the final, here's our fund balance beginning.
Right.
Here's our fund balance ending. They're virtually the same. Where in previous years, we've always gained by, since Becky, we went from negative $12,000, $12,600 and something, she has the exact cent, to $1.3 million every year.
But see, if you're here and we're ending at 84, but we're ending at 92, that's a growth.
Well, but the fund balance, the stuff that we.
But the appropriated balance is running through both funds.
Well, this is the beginning balance, and then this is the unappropriated. This is apples to apples.
Okay.
So beginning of the year, we had $5,322,000 in the fund balance. At the end of the year, we'll have $5,327,000 in the fund balance. So that's one apples to apples that we can compare to.
Okay. But
Different columns and different numbers.
no, but if you're adding them together, apples to apples, at the beginning of the year, it's 84, and then over here we're starting at 92. That's what I'm saying. And that's where I'm saying I don't have enough information, enough knowledge to understand what I'm looking at, how it's applicable, and what I'm really looking at.
Gotcha.
Because I did understand that, Brian explained we've got like the 90,000 thing. It's kind of I don't want to call it a shell, out, and it's covering this for that. So I get that, but I don't know that. When I'm looking at it going, this makes absolutely no sense to me. So I don't feel that it's advantageous for me just to rubber stamp it when I don't understand. So that's why I said no.
In that instance, you could have just abstained from voting. Yeah, because abstaining is actually specifically, so if you feel like you don't have enough information, then you don't have to actually do a yay or a nay. You can abstain from voting specifically for that reason.
Okay.
Anyway.
So had I abstained, abstained, would the motion carry?
Yes.
Okay. And that was my error.
Do we want to call for another motion?
Chairman,
I'm concerned that we won't get it. Because we can always, and to your point, you know, the first week we see the eyes in the classroom, and we've done this in the past. We can adjust, we can always hire. And Becky's, you know, her number one priority is, so, you know, we see the eyes and we have an opportunity to, you know, do the bubbles, catch the bubbles where
Right.
more kids are. Can always add, but, you know, the criticalness of getting a budget in place and presented to the state
Right.
is, you know, it's really, it's very important. And granted, this year we didn't have an opportunity to meet together, you know, in a workshop. So, I mean, but I would like to, if we can, you know, because if you don't really necessarily oppose, or you're kind of in the middle zone and you want to abstain, that would affect.
Yeah, I don't understand enough. I don't understand why some, like, just the different programs, I don't understand what the benefit is of putting a whole bunch of money into some of the programs and then cutting some of the other programs. When I, like the gifted and talented, $2,500? I mean, really? I don't understand why, which doesn't mean it's a right or wrong. I just don't understand. And, you know, so that's why, and not wanting to utilize all the time to say, please educate me on what all these programs are so that I get a better understanding. I don't think it's appropriate use of time for tonight.
Well, in that event,
if they have additional, Wallace wants to answer tonight, or if they have additional questions that he can follow through with to help answer. I just also want to, that would be fruitful if we could take the questions that they have, so he can, you know, we can send out additional answers to questions they may have. The other thing is, I want to make sure it's clear that Trustee Grissom said we have an additional 18. Those are not additional 18 FTEs that are being cut. You said that an additional.
Oh, well, maybe I did, maybe I
It's
used
not
the
a-
wrong word, but I'm just looking at it, and maybe additional was wrong. We can scratch additional. I still have a concern with 18 positions being cut. And we don't know.
And it's not really 18 positions, so that I sent this out in an email earlier with other questions, but taking the current program that we have, where we currently have right now, any attrition that's happened, retirements or resignations, those are only being filled if they're positioned at, like, for instance, family consumer science at Lakeland High School, we need that position in order to fill the master schedule. We needed a math and science position to be back at Timberlake High School, we filled that position. I could go through each and every, tell you without looking anywhere, I can tell you exactly where I've moved every single staff person.
So can
I just,
Yeah.
I can go,
Slide.
I could go through every single one and tell you what was moved from Athol over to Timberlake High School, Spirit Lake, and what. I've done it with the admin team, and I could go here and tell you exactly every single staff person, exactly where I have our hand, where we're gonna put our very first, once we see the enrollment, where we're gonna put our first person back at Mountain View High School, the very next one, Timberlake Junior High School. I can tell you exactly everything. But in my experience, and I'm not trying to be mean, but boards do not ask that level of depth of understanding into the weeds. That is my job, to make sure that I have the adequate staffing. And when the board is asking me if I've done the right thing for staff, that's my job. That's what I'm in charge of. So for me to go through each and every single thing that I'm doing in the entire district for staffing, that feels to me like, I certainly could do that at a board workshop because you're new and you want to see all my thinking, and I could be here and I could show you the whole thing. It's definitely something that I've been doing for 4 years, and it's never got to the level that the board, at any board that I've ever experienced, 28 years of education, that the board has ever asked that level of detail from a superintendent. So I guess what I'm telling you is, when I have to be fiscally definitely conservative, but I also have to make sure I'm taking care of our staff. I've done, because I have not riffed anybody nor furloughed anybody or fired anybody that hasn't asked for the furlough. So that piece, and then I'm waiting to see where the enrollment comes in, where the attendance comes in, and then normally we have had an emergency levy. I'm not counting on an emergency levy. So where you have the COVID money that we've talked to the admin about, I've given them priority list of exactly where right now the hot spots are in different buildings. And if the enrollment comes in, where are we gonna hire the people back in? So I mean, I have the whole plan ready to go, but it would be unwise, in my opinion, for me to hire off right now. We would be hiring out in the externally, we would be hiring brand new people into our district and promising them and giving them a contract and promising them a job when we don't even know what the stages are for reopening. We have no idea what enrollment's going to be, what attendance is going to be, and that would be fiscally irresponsible to recommend that to the board. So at this point, where we are, I guarantee you, if you talk to anybody that's worked over the last 4 years, how the kindergarten teachers just said, we aren't going to let there be this huge bubble somewhere that we aren't going to, we are going to take care of that. If there's a big bubble anywhere that you're speaking about, like we need to get more staff back in, I guarantee you, and I will keep you guys up to date. Here's where a bubble's happening. Here's where the registration is here. I know Garwood at 4th grade right now, there's 30 in both 4th grade classrooms. That's a bubble. Like right now, we're on the brink. If there gets to be more 3rd grade, 4th grade, we're gonna need a 3-4 combo there. I've got it already ready to go. But I'm not gonna recommend right now for the budget that we hire that 3-4 combo, not knowing if the people are gonna come and we're right on the brink. But I can guarantee you that I'm not gonna let there be 36 people in the 4th grade classroom there. We will hire in when we get here in the fall. So I have a plan and it's ready to go, and that's what the budget's built on, is this plan that's ready to go. And then we have the COVID money that is going to be there, and I said this to the interest-based bargaining team, that if we have bubbles, that's how I'm going to approach it, because I cannot count on the emergency levy like we've done for the last 4 years.
Well, respecting everything that you have just said, bubble does occur, since we've already made all of these cuts, where's the money coming from?
The COVID money is not in the budget.
No, I'm not talking about the COVID money. If we don't have the COVID money, and, first day of kindergarten, we've got 40 kids, and you're like, okay, we need another 1 or 2 teachers, where's the money coming from? We don't have the COVID money.
Well, COVID money is coming in, there's $700,000, $700,000 that we did not budget because we do not have it yet, so.
And Trustee Thompson, that could come from funding.
Okay. That which was my point. So this says certified staff reduction. It doesn't say add additional, it says reduction. If we're reducing by 18 positions, not my word, reduction. That's exactly what I said. It could come from the fund balance. That's all I'm concerned about. The other stuff is perfectly fine. I'm concerned about that we're cutting these, reducing these positions.
And just so Trustee Gibson, that our costs aren't static for our staff.
Right.
So we had an 8.8% increase in our medical costs.
I read all that.
And by providing steps and lanes for our staff, there's a significant cost of that. We're not, this year, movement on the career ladder, our revenue side stays static. So by providing those dollars, that dollars have to come from somewhere. So we certainly, and like I said in my statement, we could plan this. I mean, if truly we thought it was prudent, I would recommend it to spend fund balance down for 1 year, $2 million, $3 million. Let's say we took that hit. You only do that once, and then you now have a budget that's built on this level, and so you really just kick the can down the road and we're going to have significant cuts the next year. Right. So it's just that I really think as a districts that are financially stable, they budget on their available revenues, on their best guesses, because the savings account is just that, and it can be gone quick. Lakeland used to have a very high fund balance. It took them 2.5 years to get to -12. So it can happen like that. And I just wouldn't recommend we go back to those days. So, I really think that we presented a reasonable budget. I do my best guesses to really not perfect. This year's really hard. I'm pretty good. Last year I was off $70,000 on $17 million of salary-based apportionment. I'm within 0.3%. The 1 year before that was within $50. That will never happen again. But I really do try to present you the budget of what I think is going to happen. And of course, whatever I present you will be wrong. Because actuals will never be the budget. But we really are trying to live. A budget is a 1-year plan. And I always think it's best for a 1-year plan to live with the needs supposed to get better.
And I do want to reiterate, there's not an 18 cut. He had a 10 certified and he has 8 classified. And the classified are not FTEs. And when people hear they're 18, that's not accurate. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I misread that.
And the
Certified and classified.
And the classified is very, very flexible. We still have one-to-ones that need to be, there's still a lot to do with classified. We have not even finalized our staffing for classified yet. We had to do certified because of interest-based bargaining. And as of right now, I couldn't even hire the 10 if we wanted to, because where the places would be, I could go through, I kind of went through with you guys, but where the class sizes are in the different, I couldn't even hire those 10 back right now. Based on the current enrollment, it would not be feasible to put where they would go. So.
Like, I appreciate what you've said. I mean, throwing in COVID money that's not here, that I don't know about. I know it's out there, but where is it coming from? And then respecting that we could have bubbles and now we're gonna hire teachers, but we're saying we have no money, so where is it coming from? And I know you are fiscally conservative. And I know the fund balance is, in a sense, the absolute beyond absolute last resort. So, but again, that goes to my lack of knowledge because I don't know these things. And I don't want to, again, just rubber stamp something because, we're just going with the flow. I really like to fully understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. If you want to ask, if there's additional questions that we can answer and you want to give us, Chrissy can write down notes and Brian and I can work on those and send them, more follow-up information for you guys.
Please don't think this is getting in the weeds. This is simply about understanding what I'm looking at and what I'm supposed to be basing my decision for the people that I represent on. And I don't understand.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm just talking about the actual staffing piece. For me to go down to that level of detail I feel like would be, that part of the staff. This is going here and this is going here and this is what I'm waiting on this one and this is the class size here. That part I could spend the next couple hours tell you, but I don't think that is really what's.
It's not solving my problem right now.
That's what I hear you saying. I hate hear you saying that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Can I read?
You can ask for another motion.
Can I ask if you'd like to make another motion? Give them a little different level of understanding. Would anybody move to approve the budget for dinner?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 budget hearing presentation as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
Trustee Thompson, would you rephrase to just the 2020-2021 budget, not the presentation?
So I make a motion, not a problem, to approve the 2020-2021 budget.
Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Trustee Major, Trustee Grissom.
No.
Trustee Thompson.
Abstain.
And Trustee Irons.
Yes.
Okay, motion would carry. was a little confused at the initial motion and then the abstaining.
Okay. You can't do that?
Yeah, it's just confusing, it's okay, the motion still carries.
But I would like,
Somebody just
I'll be
opt out.
right, I got, yeah, but I would really, CFO Wallace and I would really like to answer the questions. Now that we're more in person, we could certainly do like a workshop where people could dive into it deeper and talk about it and talk about the staffing thing, just so, because we've only been together since January and March, that we could talk it through a little bit, you know, at a workshop. We could certainly do that, just so that we have more, we're not in the middle of a, you know, board meeting, we can have back and forth discussion and talk about it more. I would really like to do that.
Okay, so
Can you breathe?
next action item is to approve or deny the interest-based bargaining agreement as presented for 2020-2021. So we have the information. There's some discussion we would like to have on that. You have some information for us on it?
So typically what we do is we have the whole IDB process, and then the board, whoever the board member would be updating each board meeting, they'd be updating the board. This is what we've talked about, this is what we're working on. It went a little bit, you know, quicker than normal because we've done the language part first, and then we did this all kind of in one session. So you can see the tentative agreement. It's based on, once that piece comes out, it's all that couple of pages there. But you can see the language changes that were made and then the economic items. In summary, for the certified, it's steps and lanes. Steps means you move down. It's not a raise, but it's a step means a year of experience. And a lane means we talked about that earlier, they earn their credits and then moved over a lane. And then classified and administrators would move down their year of experience. Then they increase into the health insurance piece goes in there. So you can see that total piece and then the language pieces we did there. That, once we get to that in the IDB and we have the unanimous decision from IDB, they take it to their membership and they vote on that. It was ratified 58 against 97 for of their membership, and they had 96% of their membership voting last week. So that passed and ratified, and now it goes to the board level, and then the board votes to approve the IDB pieces, and then they sign and it goes into effect, and the negotiated agreement is signed. So if you would like to ask us any questions about any of that.
Pretty impressive to have it all have a ratified agreement so smoothly. No. Working for the other 20 years. Negotiated agreements with drawn out. That's one of the things that I've been impressed with. So ability, learn, negotiate, to have such a good relationship with guys to get it through.
Yeah, we did have people at the end, you know, we had the IBB and then we had several people, you know, on the Zoom meeting, but just thanking us for having a peaceful process and that the anxiety was lower. They said to the whole team, just like it was a very peaceful process compared to years past before we started IBB. So people are really grateful. Even if we don't always see eye to eye, that there's interest, we have common interest, we talk about it. So that was great.
Now again, from lack of knowledge, not ever having known what goes into these contracts. With respect to the other items, the class size language for elementary teachers, with the stipend for students over class size, is that something fairly standard in contracts?
Not necessarily, but this was the second year. We started it last year.
Okay.
And it was, just a talk earlier about the exemplaries, what we shoot as best practices for that. We had some bubbles, and they said, how can we, at the elementary level, how can we help reinforce the teachers that maybe have a bubble class size? Because it is more work. If we have a huge class size, kind of how they even precipitated and started was at the secondary level. If you have way too many kids, you can actually have another section, and a secondary teacher can teach on their prep, and that's in the negotiated agreement. You can get paid to actually teach on your prep. Well, that's not possible at the elementary. That started the discussion a couple of years ago, and so there was teachers have the exemplary class sizes so that people have the smaller class sizes because that's what Berkeley is known for. So we did the whole process, and it came out of a whole brainstorming session 2 years ago. This idea came just from the team brainstorm. So we implemented it last year. It was passed and put in the negotiated agreement. There was some logistical problems because Brooke was trying to do a spreadsheet. It was a daily rate, and they said no. In the negotiated agreement said it was a monthly rate. Short. This language cleans up some of the logistical problems that happened this year. So everyone agreed that instead of paying it per month and doing this daily thing, if they're over the 1 week, 5 days, they get paid for the month. And then we're going to pay in the end of the year the stipend instead of this monthly thing, which was hard for payroll and Brooke to keep up. So this is really solving some logistical things that happen.
Okay, so this isn't something new, this is just being refined from last year.
Exactly, great, that's a really good question. Okay. The early retirement, if you don't mind, I think since you said that, I'm gonna tell you, the early retirement is new.
Okay.
We got that from a surrounding district. It helps with staffing issues because often people know they're gonna retire, but then they just wait. If they know they're gonna retire, we said, well, that will help with staffing if we know they're gonna retire. And it's not a ton of money, but just a $500 stipend. And we did find out from some other districts that were doing that. So that was.
So it gives you a heads up so you can start the process.
Yes. And that was brand new this year.
Okay.
And then the extracurricular, that was because the cheer and dance year, those coaches work year round. But if they don't go to state competition, then they don't have to do what other head coaches do. So that was adding just this extra 0.5. We've been talking about that for a couple of years. It kind of finally came to fruition. And then this duty-free lunch, there really was just a few issues with some staff. I guess one school, they had a 20-minute lunch and other people had 30, and then sometimes some positions didn't get a consecutive 30 minutes, it was split. So we just kind of finalized that, and we all feel like that's really valuable for a staff person, certified person to have 30 minutes duty lunch. So that was a new language this year.
Okay. Thank you.
On the version of this that I looked at, I went through yesterday or something. Seemed like they were highlighted.
Mine was yesterday.
I'm sorry, I apologize for that. We had a last minute change today on language revision in the cheer stipend. And I had already printed off the hard copy for signature, and I had taken out the highlights so I could print off that hard copy. And when Christy uploaded, I'm sorry, my highlights were taken off.
Because I remember zooming into those. It was really nice to zoom into those different sections and see where the language was changed. And then when I, re-uploaded to make sure that there were any updates, it was gone. I felt
Yeah, I'm
lost.
I
sorry.
assume the highlights were added to, but I didn't.
Those were changes, and I apologize for you guys.
You did a great job.
Sorry.
All right. Do we have any more questions or conversations about the bargaining agreement as presented?
I do. So the language that's being added to the board policy 5210, am I reading that right, on page 22 of this document? What is that language?
Oh, I think you're looking at the draft agreement.
Oh, okay.
That's, yeah. Someone thought, that's only a few pages.
over here, okay, never mind. It was the other, it was the other one, the ones that we were looking for with the highlights.
Oh, okay.
It's on that one. It says that there's, page 22 to be added to board policy 5210, starting with the second paragraph, which included the 30-minute duty-free lunch. And it was, that was the
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So the all
negotiated
certified-
agreement.
Yes, it is.
Mhm. Yeah.
Correct.
It was,
That's from the previous year.
From the previous year.
We didn't even
No,
talk about
Yeah,
that this
the
year.
only
so-
thing that we talked about, yeah, that wasn't even.
Oh, so that just is- That's not even from this year.
That should just probably be a cleanup.
okay.
So let's clarify that, the thing to be added is, that's previous, that's already been. That's already in.
Yeah, this, that.
The
was
only
the
things that are new
No, it's
for
not.
the negotiated agreement are the things that are listed under the, on the IBB.
On 5210 though, it doesn't state. There's too many things open. Now I can't see. The duty-free lunch language is not in 5210. And on the draft that we'll go over tonight, it's on there stating, it was not last year. Well, it's not in policy 5210, just so you know. But it does say under this draft agreement, the teacher workday description is to be added to board policy 5210, starting with the second paragraph, which is specifically all certified staff will receive a consecutive 30-minute duty-free lunch. Certified staff may voluntarily utilize this time for student conduct. That portion is not in 5210.
And we did
we're
not-
saying-
About that bottom part. Because that.
So we need to strike that to be added to policy, starting with, that needs to be stricken, or
I'm not either because we didn't even discuss that in IBB, so I'm not sure why we're even discussing it now. But it's there from the previous year. She said
Which is
we
a
didn't,
housekeeping item.
yeah, we didn't even discuss it this year at all. That never came on
Well,
policy.
wait a second, but before we went on to that, you had said that the duty-free lunch language was something that we just
Yes,
introduced this year.
we never discussed policy 5210 in IBB this year.
Oh,
So I'm not sure where that sentence is.
now I get you. Okay,
We updated that duty-free lunch, but we never discussed policy 5210, so I'm not sure where that wording
Okay.
is coming from.
okay, so what you're saying is that was there from the last year for the big upper paragraph, but it got kept on there for this year for
Yeah,
the
we didn't
little
catch
paragraph.
it during that.
Okay,
So
not a problem.
should we be updating the policy then with the 30-minute?
I think what we need to do is just update the negotiated agreement, being that they didn't discuss it, and strike the to be added under Article 5 is what should happen. The policy stands as it is just fine. This was something they negotiated. So yeah, I would just strike under Article 5, strike the to be added board policy 5210, starting with the second paragraph.
That makes sense. All right, so, good catch. Very good catch. Do we have any other things we want to discuss about this?
make a motion to approve the IDB tentative agreement for 2020-2021.
You include striking.
It's not on the agreement, it's in the negotiated,
Oh, okay.
the draft.
So those are just for housekeeping.
I think so, because but, well, I don't know, because the end, there's an action item to approve the draft of the negotiation. So then I think we're voting on the very first one, the IDB agreement, which is fine. The 3-pager.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor
Take a roll call vote on this.
on this one, please?
Yeah. We always do have in the past and do on the negotiated agreement and then the budget as well. If you don't mind, trustee Majors? Trustee Grissom?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson? Trustee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is approval to deny to send teacher contracts on 6/19/2020 and to be returned on 6/29 for Idaho statute 33-513 section 1.
Oh, wait a second.
So,
Sorry, Rob.
no.
On the draft 2020-21 negotiated agreement, I believe that is something we do have to approve or deny, correct? Is that correct?
They're both underneath there, one approved, deny, or were you just adding that?
Or was it supporting documentation? Was it supporting documentation?
Yeah, it's just.
Okay,
If we're good.
Sorry, I have to defer to Brooke on that
no,
one.
that's fine. We've got hyperlinks in the documents.
Okay, so back to sending the teacher contracts out on the 19th so that they can get them returned by the 29th for Idaho statute. That's just all about time frame. We already have.
And the board needs to approve those dates. Those are the dates that the HR Director Cunningham has, and if you would like to ask her any questions about that, but she has the 10 days and the board needs to approve the dates that go out and come back.
Can I just ask why those dates were chosen? Is there a specific reason?
Yeah, we're really late typically.
Okay.
We would, have already settled in the first week of May.
Oh, okay.
And now we just settled and you guys just approved. So now I have to work on contracts. That gives me time to work on contracts. Meet our July 1 deadline.
Okay.
It's all driven by that July 1.
Perfect.
So I'll make a motion to approve, to send the teacher contracts on 6/19/2020 and to be returned on 6/29/2020 per Idaho statute 33-513, section 1.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next item, approve or deny the returning certified staff list as presented. Questions on the staff list that we have?
What does RC mean?
Returning contract,
Okay,
and it could be called the renewable teacher,
okay.
and then the category,
Would be where they're on.
yeah, the category 2 first year, category 2 second year, renewable contract. And then bringing the certified this board meeting, the administrator will be next board meeting. The classified does not, we just give it to you as a matter of information that the board doesn't approve the classified list. But once we get that, now that we've done certified, then I'm gonna work on getting that classified more carried out and then bring that information to you. Again, we're definitely way behind, like,
Right.
because of the COVID thing, we're so far behind where we normally are. Normally, we even send out letters of intent for a classified and we aren't ready to go yet, which I shared with the CDI team this morning.
I'll make a motion to approve the returning certified staff list as presented.
Motion and a second.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion authorizations. So the last action item is to approve or deny the recommended alternate authorization for K-8 endorsement for employee 06.09.2020-A.
And this is, the board always approves any alternate authorizations, and we have an application and a mentoring process. Those happen.
Okay, so this particular employee holds certification for one, and she wants to expand that certification?
Yeah, she was one that was hired for the 6th grade at Lakeland Junior High School. She taught 6th grade at Ben Kiefer last year, but wants to be able to teach all subjects. And so we're going through the alternate authorization. She has experience, and she already has a year of experience in our district.
Okay, and then she'll be following the line of mentoring? Okay.
Yes.
Name is familiar, but
She was at Ben Kiefer teaching 6th grade this year.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended alternate authorization for K-3 endorsement for employee 06.09.2020. Can I start over? I'll make a motion to approve the recommended alternate authorization for K-8 endorsement for employee 06.09.2020-A. One second.
there's a motion and a second.
That's a mouthful.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. All right, so, guess we're down to, do you have any more discussion items about the, final week?
If the board has any questions on that, and then one thing I really wanted to bring up that I didn't bring up earlier is we had talked with our board training on policy committee. We have, I have a whole form with a spreadsheet with all the policies, what's superintendent responsibility, admin responsibility, board responsibility, when was the last updated, and so we have a spreadsheet ready to go. Two wonderful trustees have volunteered to help us with that, and we're looking at which district admin would help if it's a teaching and learning, if it's federal programs, and if it's something that I would do, and that so that we could all work together. And if we could do 1 to 2, because the first reading at a board meeting, and we could go through them. We have several that are right on the docket that need to be addressed now, soon. So we'll probably be talking to you within 2 weeks.
With respect to those revisions, can we also consider adding like the forms or the things that are also out there that we do not have on our website? I mean, not our forms, but like their standardized forms that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Are you speaking to like the protocols that would be a link into it? Is that what you're speaking to?
I'm speaking to the fact that there are some policies with a P or an F after them, and we don't seem to tie those in with our policy. So I would like us to consider that. I don't know what that entails. I just, it's on my wish list.
Yeah, and that's definitely a discussion item, because some boards do that and other boards don't want their board policy manual to be shorter and not longer, and they don't put the F's and the P's in, and they say you can go look at that in the admin handbook, staff handbook, student handbook. We kind of have that. So that's a philosophical discussion. I think that the subcommittee could talk about it and say which way would the board like to lean, and then bring it back to the whole board so everyone gets to weigh in on that one. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So we have a new section, board member input for future agenda. Anybody have anything?
I'm sure you're watching the clock and seeing, just getting closer to time to get up.
Yeah, you're actually very correct there.
Yeah,
Poor me, I feel bad for you.
You didn't choose to get up at 2:15. That's fine.
Nonetheless, I am empathetic.
So I think we can,
Well then, if there's no other business, I will adjourn us.
Good job, Rob. That was a.
If you guys wouldn't mind, if you have, other questions that we can answer, I feel like it's hard to answer some budget questions via email.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff I was saying, I just don't feel like it